Chapter 870. When Lian Ling hurriedly ran to the spot where Gahan had died, she found him leaning against a tree and looking at her with an elegant smile on his face. Immediately, an unknown evil flame rose in her heart. "You bastard! I'm going to kick you to death." Lian Ling lifted her leg and wanted to kick Gahan's stomach. Unfortunately, Gahan's reaction was faster than Lian Ling's. He directly hit Lian Ling's ankle with his hand. Lian Ling was caught off guard and fell in front of Gahan with a plop. Her pretty little face made intimate contact with the hard ground, and her face was covered in dirt and dirt. She looked very embarrassed. "All right, stop messing around." Gahan stood up from the ground and grabbed Lian Ling's arm to help her up. He firmly held onto Lian Ling's hand and said with a smile, "You're so amazing." In the blink of an eye, all the Wu people died. "I want to thank you for saving my life." Feeling the warmth of Gahan's palm, Lian Ling didn't know whether she should pull her hand out or not. She could only moan and say nothing. Then, Gahan and Lian Ling walked together to the Blood Demon Sword and the Big Dipper Sword, who were watching from afar. He respectfully bowed to the two sword ladies and then greeted them, completing the basic procedure. The Blood Demon Sword was very warm to Gahan. After she understood how powerful Lian Ling was, she became very curious about Lian Ling's boyfriend. As for the Big Dipper Sword, after carefully sizing up Gahan, it turned around in a very cold manner and went off to do something unknown. The last one was Hong Yu, who was standing beside the Vermilion Bird Throne. Gahan only took a glance at her to determine that she was an old acquaintance that he had never met before. King Arthur's betrayal was the game dungeon that had the most profound impact on Gahan's life. There was no other dungeon. Gahan had never forgotten the 5 teammates who fought side by side in this game dungeon. Although Magic Pen eventually parted ways with his teammates, Steel Centipede, Yu Sikong, and Yu Siyu, the brother and sister Hong Yu, had contact with Gahan from time to time in the game. Now everyone should have realized that the Hong Yu in front of them and the Hong Yu in the game had the same name. What made Gahan even more sure that the Hong Yu in front of him was his former teammate was her appearance. She looked exactly like the Hong Yu in the game, so there was no need for Gahan to doubt her. However, Hong Yu did not recognize Gahan. After all, the military governor in the game had cut a scar on his face and changed his appearance. Unless it was someone like Song Hama or Song Yifei who had been with Gahan for a long time, it was impossible to connect the military governor in the game with the Gahan in reality. Therefore, when Hong Yu saw Gahan, she did not listen to Gahan. Instead, she glared at Gahan with disdain. It seemed that in Hong Yu's eyes, Gahan was just a man who relied on Lian Ling to live off Lian Ling. This was to be expected. In everyone's eyes, no matter how strong a man was, it was difficult to surpass the ability of the descendant of the Lian family, let alone have the resources of the Lian family. Therefore, every man who was with a girl from the Lian family was a man who wanted to use the resources of the Lian family. Gahan did not care too much about this. However, he would eventually shine, and Cone Nail would eventually poke a hole in his pocket. Time would prove who was truly powerful. I've communicated with Yao Guang. Yao Guang said that the Wu people on the Green Dragon planet have not given up. Instead, they want to attack the Green Dragon Emperor planet as soon as possible because of Vermilion Bird's failure. Also, they have secretly lured away the Wu people who were confronting the Titan planet. Those idiots on the Titan planet only realized this after half an hour. However, it is too late now. More than 2/3 of the Titan planet's forces are rushing to the Green Dragon planet. 6 of the 7 great sorcerers surrounding the Titan planet have disappeared. With their speed, it is estimated that they're only a short distance away from the Green Dragon planet. Suddenly, the Big Dipper Sword returned with an anxious expression. So, in the blink of an eye, the focus of the war has shifted from the Suzaku planet to the Green Dragon planet. Lian Ling was also anxious when she heard this. Originally, she thought that after saving the Suzaku planet, the crisis of the Zhou Tian Stars battle formation had been resolved. However, she did not expect that the Wu people would not give up and would actually forcibly move the battlefield to the Green Dragon planet. If the Wu people really used two-thirds of the forces they were using to confront the Tian planet and the forces of 6 great sorcerers on the Green Dragon planet, the Green Dragon planet might not even last 3 minutes. I will go and reinforce the Green Dragon planet now. The reinforcements from the Tian planet will take at least 15 minutes to arrive. Right now, we are the only ones closest to the Green Dragon planet. These damned Wu people. Even if I, Liu Ling, am here alone, I will be able to kill them all. Liu Ling said in an imposing manner. Time waited for no one, and Liu Ling immediately moved to reinforce the Green Dragon planet. However, just as Liu Ling was about to set off excitedly, she suddenly felt the world spin around her. If it weren't for Gahan's quick reflexes, who held her waist, Liu Ling would probably have fallen to the ground. Not good. She has consumed too much of the power of the stars in her body, and her body can't hold on any longer. The Big Dipper sword was, after all, a sword maiden who had once followed the descendant of the Lun Yin family. With one glance, she could tell that Liu Ling's physical condition was not good. This is not surprising. Although the Suzaku planet's Zhou Tian Star Time banner can increase all of our attributes by 5 times, reaching the level of a spirit sword level sword wielder, the sword essence itself has not increased at all. Furthermore, those great magi of the Wu people are all genuine meteor level Yuan Ko. Our Miss Liu Ling was able to instantly kill 4,000 Wu people and 3 Wu people's great magi by herself. I reckon that she has consumed all the sword essence in her body. So naturally, she fainted due to the lack of sword essence, Hong Yu said as a matter of fact. Here, Hong Yu also revealed an extremely important piece of information, and that was that the Great Zhou Tian Star Time banner could greatly increase all of the sword wielder's attributes. Thinking about it carefully, the Heaven Magi of the Wu people were equivalent to the famed sword level sword wielder, and the Great Magi were equivalent to the top spirit sword level sword wielder. Furthermore, the total number of Wu people was 50 to 60,000, which was 5 times the total number of the sword wielder. However, the highest combat power of the sword wielder was only around 300 famed sword level sword wielder. How could they be evenly matched with the Wu people? Just take the battle between the Blood Demon and the Big Dipper sword as an example. The 2 famed sword maidens were actually able to fight against 3 great magi who were equivalent to spirit sword level sword wielder. This was obviously not in line with the basic setting of this world. The reason why these famed sword level sword wielder could have such an ability was thanks to the power of the stars in the entire Zhou Tian star battle formation. Although this power of stars restricted the sword essence of the sword wielder, it could also increase the sword essence of the sword wielder. Because the Zhou Tian star battle formation was built by humans, all the great Zhou Tian star time banners were also in the hands of humans. Humans only needed to put the great Zhou Tian star time banner into their purple palace, and they would be able to transform the sword essence in their purple palace into the power of stars. At the same time, with the power of the entire Zhou Tian star battle formation, this power of stars would be magnified according to multiple times, which was equivalent to indirectly providing the sword wielder with several times the previous sword essence. Different Zhou Tian star time banners had different magnification effects. In fact, the small Zhou Tian star time banner used by the ancient sword level sword wielder could only be magnified by 2 times. The great Zhou Tian star time banner of the guest star could be magnified by 3 times. The great Zhou Tian star time banner of the main star could be magnified by 4 times, and the great Zhou Tian star time banner of the emperor star could be magnified by 5 times. The great Zhou Tian star time banner that suppressed the 2 formation eyes could magnify the power by 8 times. In other words, although the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword were only famed sword ladies, because their sword wielder was the great Zhou Tian star time banner that suppressed the 2 formation eyes of the Sun Star and the Big Dipper sword. These 2 sword ladies had 8 times the power of a normal person. If it wasn't for the fact that they had consumed a large amount of energy in the previous battle, the Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword would be able to fight against more than 6 great magi together. This was also the reason why Liu Ling could directly kill 4,000 Wu people and 3 great magi within a minute. Otherwise, with Liu Ling's original strength, she could at most maintain a stalemate. What do we do? Seeing the swaying Liu Ling, the Blood Demon Sword and the Big Dipper Sword could not help but panic. Without this extremely important combat power, who knew if the Green Dragon planet could be defended before the reinforcements from the Sun Moon Star arrived? Sovereign Blood, where's your Sovereign Blood? Gohan hurriedly asked. Right now, only the Sovereign Blood could help Liu Ling. This was because not only did the Sovereign Blood have the ability to regrow flesh and bones, it could also allow the wielder to instantly recover sword essence. As expected of the Sovereign Blood technique, it was indeed amazing. I didn't bring it. The expression on Liu Ling's face was a little strange. Grandpa said that our fleeting time family's 700 years of Sovereign Blood has been used up, so he took back all the Sovereign Blood I have. He said that I can't always have ideas about my own family, and that I have to get something from others. I was going to ask the Yin Jing City Sword Committee for some, but before I could say anything, I came to Shanghai Pass. All right, perhaps Liu Ling did not understand, but Gohan was very clear in his heart. That old man Fleeting Time Wooden Fish did not ask Liu Ling to ask the Yin Jing City Sword Committee for some. He was clearly asking him. Gohan was not stingy with this bit of Sovereign Blood. After all, he still had 1,950 cubic centimeters. But the problem was that apart from the bottle of Sovereign Blood hidden in his underwear to save his life, the rest of the Sovereign Blood was in Gohan's dimensional pocket. Right now, Gohan still did not have a flag. So where would he get the sword essence or the power of the stars to open his dimensional pocket? It was all because of that wastrel Liu Ling, who wanted to pour all the Sovereign Blood into his stomach in one go. Now, it was her turn to suffer under the cycle of karma. If she had kept half a bottle, or even a drop of Sovereign Blood, he would have been able to make her jump around in an instant. Speaking of that bottle of Sovereign Blood, Gohan thought of something. Although he did not have the Sovereign Blood in his dimensional pocket, there was still a Sovereign Blood golden pill floating in his heart. If he could find a way to let Liu Ling drink even a drop of the Sovereign Blood golden pill, then Liu Ling would be able to instantly recover all of his sword essence. However, the problem was that the Sovereign Blood golden pill was hidden in his heart. How was he going to let Liu Ling drink his Sovereign Blood? In that instant, a very unreliable idea popped up in Gohan's mind. Forget it. Time waited for no man. The safety of Azure Dragon Planet was more important than anything else. There was no time for Gohan to think of a more reliable idea, so Gohan could only use this unreliable idea. In the next second, Gohan took out his Qing Pin sword and stabbed it into his bare chest without hesitation. This sword went straight through Gohan's heart. In an instant, blood spurted out from Gohan's chest like a fountain. What are you doing? Are you crazy? The Blood Demon Sword and the Big Dipper Sword were dumbfounded when they saw this. They had no idea what Gohan was trying to do. Give it to me. Gohan did not explain anything to them. At this moment, the fountain of blood spurting out from Gohan's chest was decreasing. This was the effect of the Sovereign Blood in Gohan's body. In just a few seconds, the powerful Sovereign Blood would be able to heal any damage that Gohan had suffered. Gohan had to make the best use of every minute and second he had. As such, the dizzy Liu Ling suddenly felt a pair of strong arms hug her. Then, those hands held her head and pressed her face against a warm, soft, and hard chest. Then, a bean-like object was stuffed in her mouth. Then, a slightly smelly but thick liquid with the smell of Isatis isatitis sprayed into her mouth. Although she was somewhat resistant to the taste of the liquid, when the liquid entered her stomach, Liu Ling could clearly feel waves of sword essence spurting out from the liquid, filling up her extremely empty meridians. This was a very wonderful feeling. It was so wonderful that Liu Ling could not help but suck on the little bean, not letting go of even a single drop of the liquid that spurted out from the bean. Unfortunately, the liquid became less and less. Soon, like a faucet with insufficient air pressure, it could not spurt out any liquid. Liu Ling could only forcefully suck on the little bean and suck as hard as she could. In any case, she managed to suck out quite a bit of liquid from the little bean. So comfortable. At this moment, Liu Ling felt warm all over her body. She couldn't help but lick the little bean to thank it for its sacrifice. Wait, what was that little bean that she sucked just now? Liu Ling broke free from that person's embrace. Then, she saw Gahan looking at her calmly like the surface of a lake, while Hong Yu and the Big Dipper sword looked as if their worldview had received 100 points of critical damage. As for the Blood Demon sword, she took out a video camera out of nowhere and excitedly filmed Liu Ling and Gahan. Could it be? Liu Ling couldn't help but look at Gahan's chest. There was a half-gold, half-red bloodstain there. However, the area around Gahan's little bean was very clean. There was no blood at all, as if it had been licked clean by a small tongue. No matter how stupid Liu Ling was, she understood what had happened. How could she still have the face to face Gahan? She directly ran away with her sword lady. The Blood Demon sword and the Big Dipper sword could only follow behind Liu Ling and disappear from Gahan's sight. Chapter 871. Back to the main topic. In order to save Planet Azure Dragon, which was in danger, Liu Ling, the Blood Demon sword, and the Big Dipper sword had to rush to Planet Azure Dragon. However, this brought about another problem, and that was what to do about Planet Suzaku. Once Liu Ling and the others left, only Gahan and Hong Yu, who didn't have the Zhou Tian Stars Time banner, would be left on Planet Suzaku's battlefield. If some Wu people came to pick up the slack, wouldn't they be finished? At the thought of this, Guhan's heart skipped a beat, and he walked in front of Hong Yu. Seeing Gahan appear before her, Hong Yu was very impatient. She didn't have a good impression of this man, so she scolded him. "What are you still doing here? Hurry up and go to the sun to carry out the flag planting ceremony. Don't just stand here like a piece of trash." "Your Excellency Suzaku, I just suddenly remembered something and wanted to ask you," Gahan said with a smile. "If you have something to say, then say it." Hong Yu's expression became even colder. Because Hong Yu was once his teammate, Gahan wasn't angry at Hong Yu's disdain. Instead, he found it a bit interesting. If Hong Yu knew that he was the military governor, what would her expression be like? Of course, Gahan didn't want to expose his identity. He could only say, "It's like this. I've been thinking that the Wu people might be playing a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain. By strengthening the attack on Planet Azure Dragon, Miss Ling, the Blood Demon Queen, and the Big Dipper Queen were all transferred to Planet Azure Dragon. However, the Wu people who evacuated from Planet Tyene directly attacked Planet Suzaku. It has to be said that the distance from Planet Tyene to Planet Suzaku is shorter than the distance from Planet Tyene to Planet Azure Dragon. Also, right now, we're the only 2 people left on Planet Suzaku. That's right, we don't have a Zhou Tian Stars Time banner, so we are just 2 useless commoners. If the Wu people really come, I'm afraid we won't even last a second." Hearing Gahan's words, Hong Yu, who had a disdainful expression, suddenly became terrified. Gahan's words were too terrifying. If what Gahan said was true, and the Wu people were really playing a trick, then Planet Suzaku, without a sword holder to defend, would be like a piece of fatty meat cooked in a bowl. The Wu people would only need to take a small bite. Thinking that this might happen, Hong Yu's body naturally trembled in fear. She almost subconsciously wanted to contact the Blood Demon Queen and the Big Dipper Queen and ask them to come back. Only then would they have the power to fight. No, Guhan stopped Hong Yu in time. That's just my guess. Besides, the situation on Green Dragon Planet is indeed urgent. If they can't get there in time, Green Dragon Planet won't be able to hold out for long. Besides, the Sorcerer Tribe might be able to change their target at any time. You won't be able to achieve anything by mobilizing them like this. Then what do you think we should do? Hong Yu panicked. She could only ask Gahan, the man she hated, for a solution to the problem. Simple. As long as you can recover your battle strength, it'll be fine. Gahan patted Hong Yu's shoulder. This place should be quite close to the sun. How long would it take for you to go back and forth as fast as you can? If we have a hovercraft, 10 minutes should be enough, Hong Yu said without hesitation. It was obvious that she often traveled between the sun and Suzaku, so she knew the distance between the 2 very well. Then hurry up and go. Gahan tapped his personal terminal. According to my calculations, if the Wu people head straight for Planet Suzaku, after they come out of the lunar star. It will take them at least 15 minutes. You have 11 minutes left. If you don't waste time, you can get an extra minute. It's no use. I thought you had some good idea. Hongyu looked depressed. These 10 minutes are the time it takes to sit in a hovercraft, but all the hovercrafts around here have been destroyed. Where am I going to find one? I do have a hovercraft in my dimensional pocket, but I don't have the sword element now, so I can't open my dimensional pocket. That's not necessarily true. Gohan suddenly pointed at a bush in the distance. That's one of your people, right? Go ask her and see if she has a maglev hovercraft in her dimensional pocket. There's someone there? Hearing Gohan's words, Hongyu was very confused. This was because the bush was about 2 kilometers away from her current position. To an ordinary person, the bush was about the size of a green pixel. How could they see if there was anyone in the bush? Although she was 99% sure that Gohan was lying to her, Hongyu still held onto that 0.1% hope and shouted at her personal terminal, "Little sheep, don't hide. Hurry up and come out." Just as Gohan said, a white little sheep rolled out of the bush. Of course, this was not the real little sheep, but Hongyu's assistant, the guardian of the Phantom Golden Sheep area, the cute girl nicknamed Little Sheep. "Run over here. I'll give you 30 seconds. If you don't come over by then, you're finished." Hongyu threatened fiercely. Helpless, the poor little sheep could only use all of her strength to run to Hongyu's side in 30 seconds. Panting, she said, "Boss, I really have to give it to you. How did you find me?" However, Hongyu was not interested in answering Little Sheep's question. Instead, she grabbed Little Sheep's dimensional pocket and asked anxiously, "Hovercraft, do you have a hovercraft in your dimensional pocket?" "Hovercraft? I don't have that thing." Little Sheep's words immediately plunged Hongyu into despair. Who still plays with hovercraft these days? Hovercraft are the most popular. Little Sheep took out a maglev motorcycle from the dimensional pocket like it was a treasure, ready to show it off to Hongyu. "F***, I'll deal with you later." Before Little Sheep could say anything, Hongyu pulled her away from the maglev motorcycle and pushed her directly into Gohan's arms. Her 2 long legs stepped on the maglev motorcycle, and the engine roared. In less than 10 seconds, she disappeared from Gohan's sight. "Damn it, what is Boss doing? You didn't even say a word to me before you snatched my precious motorcycle away and even pushed me to such a disgusting man." Perhaps it was because he was shirtless. Gohan was very disgusting in Little Sheep's eyes. Your boss has his own things to do. This is a matter of saving the entire human race. Gohan smiled. "What's your real name?" Why do I have to tell you my name?" Little Sheep said cautiously. "Then I'll call you Little Sheep like your boss." Gohan's expression was indifferent. Little Sheep thought about it seriously for a while. Perhaps it was even more disgusting to be called Little Sheep by such a disgusting man. So she honestly said her name. "My name is Xiao Mian." No wonder people called her Little Sheep. If she added the word Yang to her name, wouldn't it make her Little Sheep? "Very well, Comrade Xiao Mian. I want to ask you a question," Gohan said. "What question?" Xiao Mian asked subconsciously. "Do you still have your Big Zhou Tian Star Time banner?" Gohan peeked at Xiao Mian's head. "Of course it's still here." "Why? You're just a newbie sword wielder. Do you want to be the guardian of a main star?" Xiao Mian pouted in annoyance. "It took me 2 years of hard work to upgrade my main star, the Great Heavenly Star Banner. You're useless. No matter how I look at it, it'll take you 3 years to upgrade it. Don't even think about reaching the heavens in 1 step. You're already eyeing the main star, Zhou Tian Star Time Banner." According to the rules of Shanghai Pass, newbies had to fuse with the guest star, Zhou Tian Star Time Banner, after entering Shanghai Pass. Only by continuously making contributions and proving their strength could they be promoted step by step to the main star, then the Emperor's Star, and finally, the Big Zhou Tian Star Time Banner, which was at the level of the sun and the moon. It was similar to the promotion of officialdom in real life. However, it was different from officialdom. Officialdom's position might only change after a few years or even more than a decade. On the other hand, the position in the Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation might change every few weeks. This was because your boss in Shanghai Pass changed very quickly. Maybe your boss died, maybe your boss's boss died, Or maybe your boss left Shanghai Pass after 3 years. In short, it wouldn't be long before there would be an empty spot above your head. Then, it would be time for you to climb up. As long as you had enough contributions and strength, some people could become the guardian of an emperor star in 1 or 2 months. For example, it only took Liu Yanzheng a month and a week to become the guardian of an emperor star. Another example was Liu Yanling. She pulled out the big Zhou Tian star time banner from the Suzaku Imperial Star and inserted it into her head. According to Liu Yanling's contribution in saving the entire Suzaku Imperial Star battlefield, and in the future, she might even save the entire Azure Dragon battlefield. Once the battle was over, Fleeting Time's position as the guardian of the Emperor Star was secured. She had also officially surpassed her father, becoming the first sword wielder in history to become the Emperor Star's guardian on her first day in Shanghai Pass. No, I just feel that with my strength, I can directly become the guardian of a main star. Guhan smiled and then raised his head to look at the sky in the distance. There, a dark cloud was floating over. As the saying goes, black clouds press down on the city, and the city is about to be destroyed. The black cloud was already here, but where was the golden scale? Chapter 872. Among the Wu people, no senior magus could control the black smoke, but when senior magi from 2 different clans came together, the black smoke was inevitable. The 2 clans were, of course, the Zhu Rong tribe and the Gong Gong tribe. The hatred between the 2 clans could be traced back to Mount Buzhou. The war between Zhu Rong and Gong Gong shocked the world, broke Mount Buzhou, and forced Nuwa to refine stones to mend the sky to save the world. It was also because of the battle at Mount Buzhou that the Magi lost 2 ancestral Magi. The demons of the heavenly courts saw the opportunity and took the opportunity to conquer the world. They activated the heavenly cycle star array and wanted to destroy the Magi in one fell swoop, conquer the world, and become the supreme ruler of the 3 realms. However, they didn't know that this was a conspiracy of some powerful figures. In the end, although the Wu people were all destroyed, most of the spirit beasts were killed as well. Tai and Dijun, the 2 powerful figures, died in the war. Since then, the 3 worlds had entered the era of human beings. Of course, these were all digressions. The key was the conflict between the Gong Gong tribe and the Zhu Rong tribe. After the Wu people were reborn in this world, the conflict had never been solved. It was only suppressed by the Zhou Tian Star Great Battle Formation. Every time the senior magi from the 2 clans came together, it was the most troublesome time for the other Wu people. It would be strange if the senior magi from the 2 clans didn't stop fighting. Things were just as Guhan had expected. The Witch clan had used a beautiful plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Although all the Wu people on the battlefield had died, Xiang Lu and Fengbo still held on for a while. During this time, Fengbo and Xiang Lu passed all the information about the planet to the other senior magi, telling them not to come to Suzaku to die. However, Fengbo and Xiang Lu were not so smart. When they saw that Liu Yanling was powerful, they told the other Zhu Wu not to come to Suzaku. However, there were still some smart people among the Wu people. They keenly discovered Liu Yanling's weakness. There was only one Liu Yanling, but there were 2 core areas that needed to be guarded. As long as he strengthened the offensive on the Azure Dragon planet, Liu Yanling would definitely have to go to the Azure Dragon Heart to support him. When the time comes to attack planet Suzaku, it will be a great success. In any case, you, Liu Yanling, have to save either the Azure Dragon or the Suzaku. If you, Liu Yanling, still insist on defending planet Suzaku, then just send the troops from planet Lunar to planet Azure Dragon. Can you, Liu Yanling, teleport? Since they needed to confirm if Liu Yanling was still on planet Suzaku, they needed 2 scouts. If ordinary Wu people went there, they would be killed, and their speed would be slow. Only the most powerful senior magi could possibly escape from Liu Yanling's sword. Therefore, the Zhu Fun and Gong Gong tribes' senior magi were sent over. Ray Master, you old man, you're so slow. So slow. So slow. Do you have the ability to go faster? Amidst the dark clouds, a naked young man with only a black cloth tied around his crotch was shouting wantonly. The neatly dressed old man beside him was not in a hurry. He just lightly replied, "Xing Tian, this is my fastest speed. If you can be faster than me, then you can go alone. I won't stop you." Rainmaster's words made Xing Tian speechless. He could not increase his speed anymore. However, Xing Tian was not stupid. If he rushed to the front rashly, Liu Ling could concentrate all her power and kill him in a second. Xing Tian did not doubt that a sword holder who could kill Xiang Lu, Fengbo, and Zhufeng within a minute would not be able to kill him in a second. Although the chief-elect repeatedly assured him that the descendant of the bloodline must have consumed most of the sword element in her body after killing the 3 senior magi, and did not have the ability to kill him in a second, Xing Tian still did not dare to take the risk. He could only drag Rainmaster, his old enemy, to go with him. Of course, there was a price to pay. Xing Tian was annoyed by Rainmaster along the way. He took out his axe and chopped the old man to death. Thinking that this was the best chance for Wu people in hundreds of years, Xing Tian could only resist this impulse and rushed all the way to planet Shizuku. It's just as the chief-elect predicted. The woman with the bloodline has already left planet Shizuku. When the throne of Shizuku could be seen clearly, Rainmaster's old eyes flashed with a golden light. He said with a rare excitement, "I can see it. I don't need an old man like you to talk nonsense." Xing Tian snorted. Humans are really a bunch of idiots. They thought that everything would be fine after killing Xiang Lu and the others. There are 2 humans left on planet Shizuku, and one of them is unconscious on the ground. It seems that the Zhou Tian star battle formation that has shackled our Wu people for hundreds of years will finally be in our hands. After saying that, Xing Tian brandished his axe with a murderous aura. With a roar, he rushed down. He wanted to chop that damned vermilion bird throne into pieces with his axe. "Xing Tian, you have to calm down. Be careful. It won't be too late to make a move after the 2 of us find out." The old Rainmaster immediately reminded him, "Find out my ass. There's only that stinky brat left." Old Rainmaster, I, Xing Tian, will take this credit. When your Gong Gong escapes, you will owe me, Xing Tian. Ha ha ha. Xing Tian laughed like crazy and charged down without looking back. "Idiot," Rainmaster said with disdain. "If there was only one person, then that brat down there would have escaped long ago. Why would he wait for you here? I think there must be some powerful guy hiding nearby that wants to sneak attack us. I'll take a closer look." The guy hiding in the dark that Rainmaster was talking about didn't exist. There were indeed only 2 people left on planet Shizuku. One was Gahan, and the other was Xiao Mian, who was lying on the ground. When he saw the black cloud, Gahan knew that something was wrong. He had made a serious mistake in his estimation. The Wu people's great shaman had arrived within 5 minutes. According to Hong Yu, she would need at least 5 minutes to get back. Before that, he was the only one left who could fight against these great shamans. Without the sword essence, could this solid cold deal with a senior magus? The answer was of course no. Just like when he fought with Quafu, if it wasn't for the fact that Gu Xuanwu had changed into Yuan Ko's real body and scared Quafu away, Gahan would have died there. Therefore, there was only one way, and that was to find a way to regain the sword essence. He had to use Gohan's real power to teach these Wu people how to be human. Oh no, how be a shaman? If he wanted to regain the sword essence, there was only one way, and that was to carry out the flag ceremony. In a situation where there wasn't a second Great Zhou Tian Star flag, Gahan could only learn from Liu Ling's method and snatch a Great Zhou Tian Star flag from someone else. This was why Gahan specifically asked Xiao Mian if she still had the Great Zhou Tian Star flag. "Give me your Great Zhou Tian Star flag," Gahan said directly to Xiao Mian. No, Xiao Mian rejected him directly. Was this guy crazy? How could he ask her for such an important thing? "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. 2 shamans from the Wu people are rushing here. If they break the vermilion bird throne, everything will be over. And your sword lady should have been broken in the previous battle, right? Right now, I'm the only one with a famous sword rank sword lady. Only I can face that shaman head-on and stall for time until Hong Yu comes back. If you don't give me your great Zhou star flag now, then the Vermilion Bird Throne will be broken, the Zhou star battle formation will be destroyed, and Zhu Wu will be born. All the humans in Shanhai Pass will die in the hands of Zhu Wu. Then, all the humans in Yinjing City, Yuzhong City, and other cities will all die. You will be the direct cause of the extinction of humanity. If humanity is lucky enough to survive, then you will be the eternal sinner of humanity. You will be written in elementary school textbooks and be scolded by future generations for the rest of your life. This was probably the fastest Gahan had ever spoken in his life. His mouth was like a machine gun, and it only took him 7 seconds to spit out this long paragraph. What was even more valuable was that he enunciated every word very clearly, so Xiao Mian, who was beside him, could hear everything clearly. Wah! I don't want to be the eternal sinner. However, Xiao Mian didn't expect that this long paragraph would actually make her cry. As she cried, she raised her great Zhou star flag above her head. With a wah sound, it snapped off, and she handed it to Gahan. Then, she began to cry loudly. She cried as she ran, crying her heart out. Cunning woman. Gahan rolled his eyes at Xiao Mian. Then, he directly inserted the great Zhou star flag that belonged to Gue Jinyang into his purple palace. His body quickly entered a stiff state. After a few seconds, Xing Tian descended from the sky. Just as he was about to smash the Vermilion Bird Throne with his axe, he was attracted by Gahan, who was standing motionless in front of the Vermilion Bird Throne. Guhan's current state was quite silly, and it amused Xing Tian, who had not seen much of the world. Ha ha ha! Did you see that, Rainmaster? This stupid human was actually scared silly by the great Xing Tian. Xing Tian pinched Guhan's nose and said with a laugh, Xing Tian, don't dawdle. Hurry up and destroy the Vermilion Bird Throne. Then we'll be done. Rainmaster urged from the sky. It's okay. It won't be too late for me to kill this brat first. Xing Tian laughed heartily as he raised his giant axe, preparing to chop this funny human to death with one blow. Clang! A crisp sound of axe and axe colliding rang out. Xing Tian's axe was blocked by a slender iron sword. I heard that before the apocalypse, there was a saying, villains die because they talk too much. I never understood what this saying meant, but now I finally understand. Gahan said calmly. The power of the stars in his body was like the surging waves of the sea, and this Xing Tian was his best sandbag. Chapter 873. The battle between Xing Tian and Guhan began in an instant. To be honest, Xing Tian had underestimated his enemy at first. He thought that with his strength, he would only need to waste some time, and he would definitely be able to get rid of this damned human. However, Xing Tian soon realized that he was wrong, and very wrong. First of all, in terms of martial arts, this human swordsmanship was actually on par with Xing Tian's. This was something that Xing Tian had never thought of. Who was Xing Tian? He was known as the #1 great sorcerer of the Wu people. As the saying went, Xing Tian's ferocious will always be there. This was the legend of Xing Tian's awe-inspiring might. It was said that after the 12 Zhu Wu died one after another, the remaining Wu people were led by a few remaining great sorcerers to the south of the world. They mixed with the humans who lived there and finally formed a tribe that ruled the whole south of the world, the Zhili tribe. Later on, the story that everyone knew was that the Zhili tribe, under the leadership of the mixed-blood Wu people and human Qiyu, attacked Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang. They wanted to recreate the history of the Wu people ruling the whole world. However, they never expected that some of the Wu people would help Emperor Yin and Emperor Huang. After a great battle, the Zhili tribe was completely destroyed. Qiyu was also divided into 5 parts and suppressed in different parts of the world. Meanwhile, Qiyu's master, Xing Tian, escaped and led the remaining Zhili tribe to the south to lick their wounds. Later on, Emperor Huang defeated Emperor Yin and became one of the 3 emperors. He occupied the heavenly court and ordered Xing Tian to submit to him and pay tribute. Naturally, Xing Tian refused to accept this. Therefore, he took a giant axe and a giant shield and went to the heavenly court. He broke through the defense of the heavenly soldiers and generals and went straight to the door of Emperor Huang's palace. He almost killed Emperor Huang while he was sleeping. But in the end, the Yellow Emperor was still a man of great fortune. He woke up at the critical moment of life and death, and then used the Xianyuan sword to fight against Xingtian. The two of them fought all the way from the heavenly court to Mount Shouyang. In the end, the Yellow Emperor was ahead and cut off Xingtian's head with the Xianyuan sword. He even chopped down Mount Shouyang and buried Xingtian's head with the rocks of Mount Shouyang. However, Xingtian did not give up. Instead, he used his breasts as his eyes and his belly button as his mouth to fight the Yellow Emperor bravely and tenaciously. Unfortunately, after losing his head, Xingtian's fighting ability was far inferior to the Yellow Emperor's. He died at the hands of the Yellow Emperor. Therefore, later generations concluded that Xingtian was the most powerful Wu people after Zhu Wu. After all, the Yellow Emperor was a real desolate-level Yuan Ko, and his sword, the Xianyuan sword, was a real Emperor-level sword mistress. However, for some reason, Xingtian's power level in this world remained at the level of the Fel-level Yuan Ko. He could not be compared to the Yellow Emperor at all. There were 4 small realms and 2 big realms between the two. But among all the Wu people, Xingtian was the real #1 great wizard. His axe skills, in particular, were definitely the best in the world. Xingtian was the ancestor of all axe users in the world. His axe technique had reached the acme of perfection, reaching an unfathomable level. In terms of sword skills, he could be ranked as one of the top 10 sword masters since the mythological era. If there was one Wu people in Shanhai Pass that could compare to the Lunyan family, it would be Xingtian. With his unpredictable axe skills, he had fought the Lunyan family's successor to a draw many times. He had forced the Lunyan family's successor to use a move like the billion sword technique to defeat Xingtian. Because of Xingtian's existence, when he stood outside the Sun Moon Star's defense line alone, more than half of the sword bearers under the Sun Moon Star's command did not dare to leave their defense line to support the Sun Star. They were afraid that once the defense line weakened, Xingtian would kill his way through the entire Sun Moon Star's defense line. The Sun Star had not been broken, but the Sun Star had been destroyed first. Only when the intelligence personnel discovered that Xingtian had left the Sun Moon Star's defense line did the Sun Moon Star heave a sigh of relief. It was a pity that while Xingtian was strong, his brain was not very good. He often fell into the humans' traps and was beaten to death by them. Moreover, after Xingtian had been revived in this world, he seemed to have lost his ancient memories. While his brain was not very good, he had a childish personality. Otherwise, he would not have argued with the Rain Master so childishly. All in all, Xingtian was a very powerful senior magus, but had a very childish and ridiculous character. At this moment, Gahan had a deep understanding of these 2 characteristics of Xingtian. To be honest, was Gahan's sword skill strong? Yes, very strong. However, could Gahan be ranked in the top 10 sword masters since the mythological era? Of course not. Apart from those unknown swordsmen who did not exist in the mythological era, the number of people who could defeat Gahan with sword skills since the mythological era was probably more than 3 digits. If Gahan's chaos sword technique could be perfected, then Gahan might be ranked in the top 10. However, the current Gahan definitely could not reach that position. Therefore, one could easily conclude that Xingtian's axe skills were better than Gahan's sword skills. That was the truth. After exchanging a dozen blows with Xingtian, Gahan had fallen into a very passive situation. Although the great wizard in front of him was careless and childish, the axe in his hand was rough and delicate. His opponent seemed to be able to see through all of Gahan's moves, and every attack was blocked by Xingtian. This made Gahan want to vomit blood. Ever since Gahan started fighting, other than the mysterious swordsman from the Lunyan clan, Gahan had always been able to see through his opponent's moves and then use his sword skills to toy with his opponent. However, the person being toyed with was now Gahan. No matter what, Gahan could not break through Xingtian's terrifying axe. He could only be forced back step by step. In the end, he gave up on attacking and could only defend himself. Only then did he barely manage to maintain a stalemate. However, Gahan knew that there was no such thing as a flawless defense. Furthermore, Xingtian's axe skills were far better than his. In less than 100 moves, his defense would be broken through by Xingtian. What was worse was that there was still a great wizard Rain Master watching him from the sky. He could charge down at any time. Rain Master was a Wu people who specialized in long-range attacks. His water spells had a powerful support effect. If Rain Master used a slowing spell on Gahan, Gahan's attack speed would immediately slow down, and he would not be able to keep up with Xingtian's axe attacks. In the end, he would be killed by Xingtian. On the other side, Xingtian was much happier. He was not happy because he was suppressing Gahan, but because he had finally met an opponent who could compete with him in pure swordsmanship. This was too difficult. In the few years after his rebirth, although he had fought many humans, those shameless humans did not dare to fight him one-on-one. However, those shameless humans did not dare to fight him one-on-one. They all used group tactics. Often, there would be dozens of famed sword-level sword ladies surrounding Xingtian. It was impossible to find an opponent who could fight Xingtian to such an extent. Xingtian, stop playing. Otherwise, the person with the bloodline will come back. I'll help you. We'll kill this human. At this time, Rain Master finally rushed over. The moment he saw Gahan, he cast dozens of negative spells on him. What's slowing? Freeze. Numb. Bleed. Anyway, all sorts of negative statuses hung on Gahan's body. It caused Gahan's battle strength to drop by more than 2 times. You old thing, don't disturb my battle. Seeing his opponent become so much weaker for no reason, Xingtian, who had just killed to his heart's content, became extremely dissatisfied. You're crazy. Master Zhu Wu's freedom is more important. When you get out of here, there are many powerful humans out there who will make you happy. Although Rain Master said this, he guessed that there would probably not be a second human who could fight with Xingtian. Speaking of which, who was this human? His swordsmanship was so high. How come he had never seen it before? But it did not matter. He was about to die. With the cooperation of Rain Master and Xingtian, this human could only die. And before Rain Master could react, he suddenly heard Xingtian let out an angry howl. Looking down, Rain Master's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Xingtian's axe had broken. Yes, that's right. The axe in Xingtian's hand had broken. It had been cut in half. This axe, made of connate adamantine, had actually been cut in half. Over the past hundreds of years, Xingtian had been beaten to death by humans dozens of times. However, that was because Xingtian's body had been killed. However, Xingtian's axe had never been broken. This was because no famed sword mistress had ever been able to cut Xingtian's axe. But now, this axe had been cut in half. What sword is that in your hand? How can it cut my axe? Xingtian looked at his broken axe and howled in pain. Because the Qingpin sword had an excellent restraining effect on the Wu people, even when fighting against a great wizard like Xingtian, Gahan still used the Qingpin sword. Xiao Mian was probably hiding somewhere and watching the battle, so he did not dare to use the Qi Dian sword. Otherwise, Gahan could try to use the Qi Dian sword to attack the opponent's dimensional node and see if he could activate the opponent's dimensional vortex in a Zhou Tian star battle formation. Because the Wu people would not really die, the Wu people in the Zhou Tian star battle formation would not activate their own dimensional vortex. Therefore, Gahan decided to use the Qingpin sword to fight his opponent. When Gahan realized that he might not be able to defeat Xingtian, he planned to use the Juzi sword and use his 9 swords of mysterious heaven to defeat this Wu people who could absolutely suppress his sword skills. However, Xingtian's axe actually broke. The Qingpin sword. Gahan replied calmly. The Qingpin sword? What Gahan did not expect was that when they heard the name of the Qingpin sword, both Xingtian and Yushi were so frightened that they took more than 10 steps back. This great wizard who could beat Gahan up with a single axe was actually forced to take more than 10 steps back just because of a name. Yushi, look over there. Suddenly, the panic-stricken Xingtian seemed to have discovered something. He pointed at the battlefield in the distance. which was littered with the corpses of the sorcerer tribe. It's her. It's definitely her. Yusha put his mouth next to Xingtian's ear and seemed to whisper something. Then, Yusha took Xingtian and flew away without hesitation. Gahan did not have the exaggerated sword light that Liu Ling had, so he could not catch up with the two great wizards at all. He could only watch them leave silently. At the same time, all the humans on the battlefield suddenly realized that the Wu people who had been attacking them with all their might had actually started to retreat collectively. In an instant, all of them had retreated, and not a single one was left. By the time Fleeting Time Ling and the rest arrived at the Green Dragon planet, all the sorcerer tribesmen had retreated. Long live! After a moment of daze, the sword-bearers collectively let out waves of cheers. No matter what, the humans had won this battle. Even though they had sacrificed the lives of nearly 5,000 human sword-bearers, they had still won in the end. The Wu people had retreated. Chapter 874. How was it? Did the Wu people come? After Xingtian and Yusha retreated for a while, Miss Hongyu finally came back with the roar of an engine. As soon as she came back, she questioned Gahan loudly. They came. Gahan nodded. But don't worry, I've already forced them back. You forced them back? Hongyu's face was full of suspicion. You? An ordinary person who can't even use sword essence? Boss, you're finally back, boss. Xiao Mian once again crawled out from the bushes she was hiding in and hugged Hongyu's waist. Then, she cried to Hongyu, Boss, you have to help me. This person pulled out my great Zhou Tian Star banner and stuck it on his head. Now, I'm an ordinary person, little sheep, boss. What the hell? Xiao Mian's words gave Hongyu a headache. She pulled Xiao Mian away from her body. Stand still. What are you saying in such a muddle-headed manner? If you didn't take the initiative to pull out your great Zhou Tian Star banner, who would have pulled out for you? Although Hongyu hated Gahan, she wasn't stupid. She could tell that Xiao Mian was spouting nonsense. What happened? Tell me everything in full detail. Don't lie to me, or else I'll make you a guest star guardian. It's him. Xiao Mian immediately pointed at Gahan with an aggrieved expression. He lied to me. He said that two Wu people's senior magi were coming, and that only his sword lady could resist them. He also said that if I didn't give him my great Zhou Tian Star banner, Shanghai Pass would be destroyed and humanity would perish. I would be the greatest sinner of humanity. I was so scared that I was muddle-headed and pulled out Gui Jinyang's great Heavenly Cycle Star banner. Is that what happened? Hongyu glared at Gahan and asked. That's basically it. Gahan nodded, but there is one thing I didn't lie to her about. These are indeed two great sorcerers of the Wu people. If I hadn't gotten the great Zhou Tian Star's Hour banner, the Sith throne would have been destroyed, and the Zhou Tian Star's Big Dipper formation would have been destroyed too. Humph. Are you trying to tell me that you saved the entire human race? Hongyu said disdainfully. Do you think I'm a fool? Even if it was Lady Lilith or Lady Alcade, they would only be able to maintain a stalemate between the two senior magi. How could you, an ordinary sword wielder, defeat them? Xiao Mian, let me ask you, did two senior magi really come here just now? Were these two senior magi really defeated by this man? Hongyu turned and asked Xiao Mian. Two Wu people did come, but they're definitely not senior magi. They were able to break their weapons in just a few moves. I think they're at most intermediate magi. This guy doesn't know how to brag. Bah, Xiao Mian really spat. If it weren't for Gahan's quick reflexes, Gahan would have been covered in spittle. Forget it. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. I'm too lazy to care. Seeing Xiao Mian spittle, Gahan was really angry. If it weren't for his relationship with Hongyu, Gahan wouldn't have bothered to say another word to them. After speaking, Gahan walked away. Stop. Where are you going? Hongyu chased after Gahan and asked sternly. Since you're back, there shouldn't be any danger on Suzaku. I'm going to Green Dragon Planet to see if Ling needs my help. Gahan replied coldly. In the battle with Xingtian, Gahan didn't use his true strength, nor did he use a sword technique like 9 Swords of Mysterious Heaven. Therefore, he was suppressed by Xingtian. From this point of view, Xingtian's side had the upper hand. Although Xingtian's axe was broken by Gahan in the end, they still had two senior magi, and their strength wasn't damaged at all. Logically speaking, they should have continued to fight with Gahan. After all, at that time, only Gahan, an eyesore, would be left from their dream of hundreds of years. But Xingtian and Yushur had left. They had left without hesitation or hesitation. Although Gahan didn't know why they left, one thing was certain. They wouldn't have any designs on Suzaku anymore. Coupled with the two annoying guys, Hong Yu and Xiao Mian, Gahan really didn't want to stay on Suzaku any longer. He decided to go to Green Dragon Planet to see if the Wu people had gathered all their forces on Green Dragon Planet and were going to risk their lives to attack. Hong Yu didn't know what Gahan was thinking. She only thought that because her trick was exposed, this disgusting man wanted to escape in a hurry. Therefore, Gahan's actions confirmed Hong Yu's guess. You can leave, but leave Xiao Mian's Ghost Golden Goat, Great Zhou Tian, Star Time banner. That doesn't belong to you. Hong Yu said sternly. Don't worry, I'm not interested in this thing. However, I still need to borrow it for a while. I'll return it to you after the Wu people are defeated. Gahan said without turning his head. Scum! A cold light flashed in Hong Yu's eyes. The Hong Yu sword in her hand instantly moved forward and stabbed directly at Gahan's neck. Of course, Hong Yu deliberately moved the tip of the sword 2 inches away. This way, it would probably graze Gahan's neck and wouldn't really hurt Gahan. Hong Yu just wanted to teach him a lesson. For a disgusting man like him, she needed to teach him a good lesson and let him understand how to be a human. However, when the tip of Hong Yu's sword was about to pass through Gahan's neck, Hong Yu suddenly felt something slap her hand. After a moment of dizziness, her wrist was tightly grabbed by another hand. Her arm was forcefully twisted into a U shape, and the blade of Hong Yu's sword was already on her neck. Hong Yu didn't understand what happened at all. Her sword was already on her neck. Let me go. You pervert. Hong Yu struggled, but she couldn't break free from Gahan's hand no matter what. Your swordsmanship has regressed a lot from before. I suggest you practice your swordsmanship a little. Gahan's wrist exerted a little force, and he pushed Hong Yu away. I said I'm not interested in Gue Jinyang's Great Zhou Tian Star Time banner. I'll return it to you tonight. After saying that, Gahan dug into his dimensional pocket, and a droplet-shaped aircraft floated in the air. Then, without the roar of an engine, the droplet-shaped aircraft flew away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He actually said that my swordsmanship has regressed. Hong Yu couldn't stop thinking about how Gahan subdued her. Just from that action, Hong Yu knew that Gahan's ability was probably above hers. He wasn't just a man who wanted to suck up to the Lionian family. And Gahan's last words made Hong Yu's imagination run wild. What did he mean by my swordsmanship has regressed a lot? Could it be that Gahan knew me from before? Boss, are you okay? Xiao Mian ran over in a panic. Let me ask you, are the Wu people who fought with this man really an intermediate wizard? Did you really see it clearly? Hong Yu questioned Xiao Mian again, but this time, the target of her questioning was Xiao Mian. How could I see it clearly from 2 kilometers away? Anyway, the two of them came on a black cloud. One used an axe, and the other used rain, Xiao Mian muttered softly. What? Hong Yu's expression turned anxious, and she hit Xiao Mian's head with her hand, making Xiao Mian cry. It's all because of your mouth. When Gahan arrived at the Green Dragon Planet, he learned from Lionian Ling that all the Wu people had retreated, including the Wu people outside the Time Planet. All of them had retreated and returned to their original tribes. This thrilling battle was finally over, and humans had won. Then, he had to do some boring things like cleaning up the battlefield. However, Gahan still had something he had to do, which was to take care of the sword bearers hiding near Tyne County. Gahan had to take them to a safe place, in case the Wu people were in danger when they retreated. Gahan wanted to take Lionian Ling with him, but one of the highest leaders of Shanghai Pass, Lilith, the guardian of the sun, suddenly sent an order to Lionian Ling to go to the Eye of the Sun Star Array immediately. She said that there was something very important for Lionian Ling to do. Lionian Ling couldn't refuse, so she had to let Gahan go alone to meet the sword bearers. Although this made Gahan a little uncomfortable, Gahan still rode the water drop and went alone. Fortunately, he came back quickly. When Gahan arrived, he saw Gu Xianwu and hundreds of Wu people confronting each other. Among them were dozens of Wu people at the Heaven Wizard level. Gu Xianwu didn't seem to want to waste his precious dragon teeth on these Wu people, so it was very difficult for Gu Xianwu. Several times, he was almost captured by the Wu people alive. Fortunately, Gahan came back in time. With a few waves of sword energy, more than half of the Wu people died. Then, Gahan started a massacre with the Qing Pin sword. In just a few minutes, the hundreds of Wu people died under Gahan's sword. Their corpses were scattered everywhere. "Are you okay?" Gahan, who had killed all the Wu people, asked Gu Xianwu. His tone was filled with concern. "I'm fine." Gu Xianwu shook his head. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. None of your people died. They're all staying inside. You still need 3 days before you can turn back into a sword bearer. Why don't you stay in my dimensional pocket for the next 3 days? I'll let you out when I'm assigned to a garrison area." Gahan suggested. "No need." Gu Xianwu shook his head. "I'm more familiar with this place than you are. I know where the safest place is. You just need to remember to tell me which garrison area you've been assigned to after the communication with your personal terminal is restored. I'll look for you myself." After saying that, Gu Xianwu jumped around in the lush forest like a spirit ranger. In a short while, he disappeared into the shadows of the trees. "Sigh, there's still a bunch of troublesome fellows." Gahan shook his head and walked into the ruins where the sword bearers were hiding. Chapter 875. Just like Gu Xuanwu had said, these sword bearers were all very safe under Gu Xuanwu's meticulous protection. When they saw Gahan's return, especially when they heard that the Wu people's attack had been repelled, these sword bearers immediately cried tears of joy. They all hugged each other emotionally. Even those with lame legs were no exception. There was nothing much to say about what happened after that. Gahan led everyone back to the safe Vermilion Bird District. The Vermilion Bird region, which had been completely deserted, gradually became livelier and livelier. Some sword bearers began to clean up the battlefield, rearranging the guardian seats and guardian mansions, and regaining control of the region that had been lost. This was something that had to be done. These guardian manors were an important part of the protection of the Vermilion Bird Throne. The Wu people had to advance step by step and destroy these guardian manors and guardian manors before they could attack the Vermilion Bird Throne, just like what they had done before. Although the Wu people had retreated, they would definitely attack again after all the Wu people that they had lost were resurrected. This was something that the Wu people had repeated for hundreds of years. On the other hand, the humans were also repeating the cycle of reclaiming various sectors, building guardian manors, and appointing guardians to each guardian manor. When the tide was high, the beach would be submerged. When the tide was low, the beach would naturally be exposed. This was the cycle of Shanghai Pass. However, compared to the previous cycles, the work of recovering the sectors this time was more troublesome. This was because Shanghai Pass was seriously lacking in manpower. The Wu people had launched 2 large-scale attacks in a month. The first large-scale attack had cost them 3,000 sword bearers. The second large-scale attack, which was also this time, had cost them close to 5,000 people. Fortunately, the first loss of 3,000 people had been made up. What they lacked now was the second wave of 5,000 sword bearers. From this, we can estimate that there were around 9,000 sword bearers left in Shanghai Pass. Don't think that this number is a lot. According to the statistics, among the 9,000 sword bearers, 3,000 were heavily injured. The heavily injured I am referring to are not the physically injured. After all, Shanghai Pass does not lack medical resources. Even the most serious injuries can be healed by the medical pods. The heavily injured here referred to the sword maidens of the sword bearers. Their sword maidens had all been broken during the battle, and they no longer had any ability to fight. However, 98% of these heavily injured sword bearers were ancient sword wielder. This was because they only had one ancient sword wielder, and if it broke, it would be gone forever. Even if the famed sword-level sword wielder's famed sword-level sword maiden broke, at least they could still use treasured sword-level and ancient sword-level sword maidens. Of course, there were also those who fought very fiercely, just like Hong Yu Xiaomian. Her 3 sword maidens had all been broken in battle. In the entire Shanhai Pass, the worst off was the Sun Star. Out of a total of 7,900 sword-bearers, less than 4,000 were left. Of these 4,000, 2,500 were heavily injured, and the remaining 1,500 were lightly injured. These were the sword-bearers whose swords had been broken. In this way, the defense of the Sun District became a huge problem. Putting aside the lightly injured, there were only 1,500 sword-bearers left on the Sun who could still fight. Of the 1,500 sword-bearers, not even 1/4 of the 7,900 sword-bearers were left. Other people played mahjong, but in the Shanhai Pass, one was missing 3. How could they play Bang Bang Hammer? Therefore, when Gahan returned to Shizuku with the sword-bearers, he received the latest news from Liu Ling. She requested all the famed sword-level sword-bearers in the Shanhai Pass to go to the Sun Star garrison for a meeting, including the sword-bearers who had come as reinforcements. Gahan didn't even have time to rest. He could only rush to the Sun Star garrison to attend this large-scale meeting that concerned the entire Shanhai Pass. The Shanhai Pass was divided into different sectors, also known as guard sectors. It was like a pyramid, and each sector was guarded by a powerful, famed sword-level sword-bearers. According to the rules of the Shanhai Pass, the guards of each sector were not allowed to leave the sector they were guarding unless they applied for leave from their direct superior. They could only stay in their sector and ensure the safety of the entire sector. Since they had to stay in the sector for a long time, there had to be a stable place for them to stay. That was how the Guardian's Mansion came into existence. The Guardian's Mansion was literally the residence of the guards. In the beginning, the Guardian's Mansion was a traditional building made of reinforced concrete and dimensional alloy. However, as the various guard sectors were often taken down by the Wu people, the Guardian's Mansion would be razed to the ground by the Wu people. Therefore, the sword-bearers who were busy building every day soon realized that this was not a long-term solution. The Guardian's Mansion could not be a fixed concrete structure. Otherwise, the sword-bearers would have to spend the rest of their time rebuilding their own Guardian's Mansion besides fighting in the Shanhai Pass. At that time, the space folding technology had been developed. This brand new technology was immediately applied in the Shanhai Pass. The Guardian's Mansion was compressed into a small tent, just like the camping space tent that Guhan had used before. It looked like there was only a little space, but it was actually a room with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. As the space folding technology improved, the Guardian's Mansion became more and more advanced. In the end, it evolved into a Guardian sphere that was only the size of an apple. With a light tap on this small sphere, a majestic and ancient Guardian's Mansion would automatically appear on the flat ground. When the humans were preparing to retreat, they would also need to tap on the Guardian sphere, and the Guardian's Mansion would return to the Guardian sphere. It could then be used again after the Wu people were defeated. Therefore, the entire Shanhai Pass was basically a Guardian's Mansion that was stored in a Guardian sphere. However, there were exceptions. These 2 exceptions were the Sun and Moon Guardian's Mansions. This was because these 2 Guardian's Mansions were the formation eyes of the Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation. If any of the formation eyes were breached, the Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation would be breached. This also meant that the Sun and Moon Guardian's Mansions could not be breached. In fact, they had never been breached in hundreds of years. Therefore, the Sun and Moon Guardian's Mansions still used traditional reinforced concrete buildings. They were real buildings and not buildings hidden in the Guardian spheres. The Sun's Guardian's Mansion was very big. It covered an area about the size of 5 football fields. Gahan did not know the specific functions of the rooms inside. In any case, after Gahan entered the Guardian's Mansion, he was led through a long corridor by the maids in the Guardian's Mansion and entered the conference room of the Sun Star Garrison. These maids were probably the only ordinary humans in the Shanhai Pass. Because the Shanhai Pass was very dangerous, and there were no city walls or dimensional walls to protect it, ordinary humans were absolutely forbidden from appearing in the Shanhai Pass. This was a bloody experience. In the beginning, human sword bearers were allowed to bring their family members or maids into the Shanghai Pass. After all, they had to live in the Shanghai Pass for 3 years. Regardless of whether they were men or women, they would definitely need to vent their desires. It was very humane to bring family members or maids along. However, after a few years, the sword bearers sadly discovered that every time the Guardian Sphere was breached, there was a 70 to 80% chance that the sword bearers could survive. However, the ordinary humans in the Guardian Sphere had less than a 30% chance. Many of the sword bearers' loved ones had died in the Shanghai Pass, causing the atmosphere in the entire Shanghai Pass to be extremely bad. Therefore, the Shanghai Pass Management Committee decided that apart from the Sun and Moon Star, which could have a small number of ordinary humans were not allowed to exist in the other areas. Sword bearers were also not allowed to bring ordinary humans into the Shanghai Pass. Therefore, the maid who was leading the way in front of Gahan was probably one of the few humans in the entire Shanghai Pass. This was a privilege that only the top sword bearers in the Shanghai Pass could enjoy. Of course, when they encountered sword bearers, they would still need to vent their desires. Therefore, humans still researched some more interesting things to provide to the sword bearers. They would talk about this later. At the moment, Gahan was walking in a corridor called the Echo Corridor. The reason why this corridor was called the Echo Corridor was because there were many portraits of sword bearers hanging on one side of the corridor. These were all portraits of the past guardians of the solar star. Guhan did a quick count and found that there were more than 120 portraits hanging in this corridor. The Echo Corridor had used this unique method to record the 300 years of history of the Solar Star Guardian Mansion. When Gahan stepped into the meeting room, it was already full. Almost all the seats were occupied by sword bearers. The maid had to move a dusty wooden chair from a small room in the meeting room and put Gahan in a small corner. It seemed that many famous sword bearers had survived and could occupy the entire meeting room. But was that really the case? In fact, this meeting room was the meeting room of the Sunstar Garrison. It was originally designed for the 182 famous sword bearers of the Sun to have a meeting. Therefore, there were only about 200 chairs in the entire meeting room. But now, all 365 famed sword-level sword bearers from the Sun and Moon Star were squeezed into this conference room for a meeting, but the seats were barely filled. From this, it could be seen how tragic the sacrifice of the famed sword-level sword bearers was. More than 150 famed sword-level sword bearers had died, and there were less than 6,000 famed sword-level sword bearers in the entire human race. This meeting room was a traditional oval meeting room. The higher the status of the sword bearers, the more central they sat. Sword bearers like Gahan, who had not contributed much, could only sit at the two corners of the oval. They were completely marginalized. When Gahan sat down, the maid who led Gahan and nodded at the two sword bearers sitting in the middle. The door of the meeting room was closed. It seemed that Gahan was the last person to arrive in the meeting room. Chapter 876. What was worth mentioning was that Gahan also saw Andreevich and Harry Chong-Ruo in the conference room. It seemed like they had already held a flag-planting ceremony. They seemed to have successfully arrived at the battlefield in the Star Shuttle. As for the remaining sword-bearers led by Ashima and Ladia, who were responsible for providing support to planet Suzaku, they were nowhere to be seen. They were not in the conference room either. Could it be that they had not returned to the human settlement? Gahan could not help but worry. There were more than 10 sword-bearers at the famed sword level, and there were also the elites of the elites like Ashima and Ladia. Just the fact that the Saintess of Jerusalem had gone missing was enough to cause an uproar in Jerusalem. Everyone is here. Let's begin. A man and a woman were sitting in the middle of the conference table. Gahan knew the man as well. He was the leader of the Yaoguang sword sect, Yaoguang. His name in Shanghai Pass was also Yaoguang. Therefore, there was no doubt that he was the leader of the Yaoguang sword sect in the game. Gahan heard a total of 3 familiar names in Shanghai Pass. They were Hong Yu, Yaoguang, and the guardian of the Green Dragon Emperor Star, Miaobi. It seemed like the 3 friends of the Yaoguang sword sect were in Shanghai Pass. Gahan could not help but let his imagination run wild. He recalled that the Yaoguang sword sect had become famous in the game 3 years ago. Could it be that the main force of the Yaoguang sword sect was actually the sword-bearers in Shanhai Pass? This was not surprising. In order to maintain the boring activities of the sword-bearers in Shanhai Pass, the Sword Committee had spent a lot of effort to complete the scientific research and transmit the network signal to Shanhai Pass through the quantum amplification device. However, because the Zhou-Tian star formation was filled with the power of the stars, the quantum communication signal was very bad. They had to set up a set of relay equipment every few guarded areas, or else the network would not be able to run smoothly. That was why Gahan could not contact the personal terminals of other people in the occupied areas because the quantum relay equipment was destroyed. After the various guarded areas were reclaimed, the network would return to normal, and Gahan would be able to enter the game. All right, back to business. Ever since the meeting began, Lilith, the guardian of the sun, had been talking nonstop. Yaoguang remained calm and listened to Lilith with a smile. He had no intention of interrupting her. After more than 10 minutes of narration, Lilith finished her speech, and the entire conference room was in an uproar. The sword-bearers of the Sun Star and the Moon Star were arguing like a bunch of scoundrels, regardless of the fact that they were fellow swordsmen and the dignity of each other. As an outsider, Gahan had no interest in participating in this quarrel. He was just silently thinking about what Lily had just said. There was only one reason why they were arguing like this, and that was how they were going to recover the areas that the sun had lost and how they were going to rebuild the sun's defense network. As mentioned in the previous chapter, there were only slightly more than 1,500 sword-bearers left on the Sun Star who could fight. This small number of people could not even form a basic defense network on the Sun Star. The situation on the Moon Star was much better. There were nearly 5,000 sword-bearers who could continue fighting. According to the news from Yanjing City, the Sword Spirit of Guay Hall was trying to build a support team of 6,000 sword-bearers to support Shanhai Pass. However, the problem was that it would take at least a week for such a huge team to be built. Within this week, they would have to rely on the remaining forces in Shanhai Pass to restore the defense network of the two Sun Stars. Therefore, Lilith made it very clear to Yaoguang that she wanted to borrow a batch of sword-bearers from the Moon Star to fill in the gap of the Sun Star. This request was actually understandable. If the Sun Star was destroyed, the existence of the Moon Star would be meaningless. Therefore, the Guardians of the Moon Star, including Yaoguang, agreed to Lilith's request in principle. However, the problem was that Lilith was asking for an exorbitant price. She wanted to borrow 2,000 sword-bearers from the Moon Star in one go. This number instantly caused an uproar among the Guardians of the Moon Star. The Sun Star originally had 1,500 people. With the addition of these 2,000 people, they would have a lineup of 3,500 people. However, in that case, the Moon Star would have less than 3,000 sword-bearers left. They had fewer people than the Sun Star. No matter how they thought about it, this was unacceptable. Lilith spoke with conviction in response to the objections of the Moon Star's sword-bearers. The reason why there are so many people left on the Moon Star is because the Sun Star withstood the attack of the Wu people's main force. The sacrifice of the Guardians of the Sun Star was exchanged for the survival of the Moon Star's Guardians. Therefore, the Moon Star should compensate the Sun Star. Moreover, if the Wu people made any strange moves in this week, the Wu people would definitely attack the area guarded by the Sun Star. Because the entire defense system of the Sun Star had been destroyed, the various defensive facilities were also gone. It would be very easy for the Wu people to attack. Therefore, from a safety point of view, it was necessary to strengthen the defense of the Sun Star. Hearing Lilith say this, the people of the Moon Star immediately expressed sarcastically that if their own people had not held back the most powerful great sorcerer, the Xingtian, the Sun Star would have been destroyed long ago. How could it have lasted until Lady Ling returned? Therefore, the credit of the Moon Star was actually the greatest. The people of the Sun Star immediately said that the people of the Moon Star were shameless. They said that the people of the Moon Star were simply dawdling. It was obvious that 2/3 of the Wu people that were used to besiege the Moon Star had retreated, but the people of the Moon Star did not even realize it. They were still foolishly confronting the Sun Star. They were simply the world's #1 idiot. If it was not for the Guardians of the Sun Star fighting to the death and being invincible, the entire Jotion star battle formation would have been destroyed long ago. When the people of the Moon Star heard this, they were immediately dissatisfied. They mocked the people of the Sun Star for lying. The fact that the solar system was able to defend itself was not the credit of the people of the solar system, but the credit of Lady Ling. When the people of the Sun Star heard this, they were immediately enraged. If they had not delayed long enough, even if Lady Ling had come, the eye of the Sun Star's formation would have been destroyed. Therefore, the people of the Moon Star immediately said that since Lady Ling's role was not important, they wanted Lady Ling alone. As long as Lady Ling's area was transferred to the Moon Star would immediately allocate 2,000 sword-bearers to the Sun Star. F*CK. The people of the Sun Star immediately expressed their rejection. They said that Lady Ling was already their vermilion bird imperial star. For the next 3 years, she would be a member of the Sun Star. The people of the Moon Star could forget about it. Therefore, this dispute gradually evolved from a dispute over the number of people to a dispute over the ownership of Liunyun Ling. The sword bearers of the Sun Star and the Moon Star were arguing that they wanted Liunyun Ling to be in their own area. The reason was very simple. Liunyun Ling was too powerful. As long as such a great god was around, unless the Wu people gathered the power of more than 8 great magi, they would not be able to defeat Liunyun Ling. However, the problem was that 3 great magi had already died in the hands of Liunyun Ling, and 2 more great magi had already died in the previous battle. Therefore, the Wu people now only had 7 great magi left. They could not even gather 8 great magi, and it was absolutely impossible for them to defeat the side with Liunyun Ling. Whoever had Liunyun Ling in their hands was equivalent to having a life-saving trump card. Therefore, Liunyun Ling naturally became the focus of the 2 sides. Seeing that this group of people was about to start fighting, Yao Guang, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. "Lilith, how many sword bearers do you have left?" Yao Guang asked this question as soon as he opened his mouth. I think there are 48 people left." Lilith hesitated for a long time. In the end, Han Yu, who was next to her, gave her the final answer. Before the war started, the Sun Star had a full field of 183 sword-bearers. Now, there were only 48 of them left, and 125 of them had died on the battlefield. To maintain the basic defense network of the Sun Star, you need a total of 68 sword-bearers. Am I right? Yao Guang asked again. Yes, Lilith replied in a drawl. Everyone in Shanghai Pass knew that maintaining the basic defense network of the Sun Star required 68 sword-bearers. There was no need for him to confirm it. He was just pretending. How about this? First, I promise to provide you with 20 sword-bearers from the Sun Star. That will make up the basic 68 sword-bearers. What do you think? Yao Guang said in a deep voice. Are you kidding me? You want me to not even have a reserve team? If one of these 68 people dies, won't my whole army collapse? Lilith immediately retorted. I know. I will provide you with reserve sword-bearers later. Now, I will confirm the minimum number of people from the Sun Star to support you. Is there any problem with that? Yao Guang said in a tone that did not allow for rejection. Forget it. I admit defeat. Lilith felt helpless. She could only confirm what she had just received. Does anyone think there's a problem with my suggestion? Yao Guang asked the other sword-bearers present. No one answered. Clearly, they agreed with Yao Guang's suggestion. After all, this was the basic number of sword-bearers needed to maintain the defense network of the Sun Star. This was something they had to do. How many ancient sword-bearers do you have left? 1,492. You need at least 3,023 people to maintain the defense network. I will give you 1,600 ancient sword-bearers. That will make up for that number. What do you think? Next, Yao Guang decided on the number of ancient sword-bearers according to the famed sword-bearers method. In fact, adding all of this up, Lunar Star had obtained a total of 1,620 sword-bearers. Although it was still a little short of her requirement of 2,000 sword-bearers, it was already a very good result. After all, Lilith knew that it was impossible for Sun Star to give her 2,000 sword-bearers. Lilith had reached her bottom line by being able to maintain the defense network. Although the other famed sword-bearers were not satisfied with this number, it was necessary. After all, the Sunstar had suffered too many casualties. They had no choice but to send so many people over. The number of people that Sunstar will send to you is decided. Next, let's discuss the distribution of the new reinforcements. At this point, Yaguang looked at Gahan, Andreevich, and the others who were sitting at the end of the conference room. What's there to discuss? Lilith frowned. These people were originally arranged to support the front line of the Sunstar. Of course, they're all my people. Is there a need to distribute them? Of course there's a need to redistribute them. Yaguang smiled elegantly. Her Highness Ming's list clearly states that these are reinforcements for the entire Shanghai Pass. These reinforcements have always been distributed by the Sunstar and Moonstar. Are you going to go back on your word, Lilith? Therefore, the focus of the conference shifted to the fight for Gahan and the others. Chapter 877. In just a few minutes, the fight over Liunyun Ling between the Sunstar and the Moonstar had reached a climax. In order to bring Liunyun Ling under their banner, almost all the famed sword-bearers began to clamor. This made Gahan and the other new sword-bearers feel incredulous. Although there were all sorts of fights and conflicts between the sword-bearers outside of Shanghai Pass, as the rulers of the human world, the sword-bearers had gradually developed some rules that were similar to the habits of nobles. Even if they were arguing, they would try their best to lower their voices and appear more cultured and elegant. Unlike now, these sword-bearers were about to step on the conference table and argue. The people of the Moonstar said that the Sunstar should give Liunyun Ling to them, since the Moonstar had already provided so many sword-bearers to the Sunstar to make up for their losses. However, the people of the Sunstar gritted their teeth and said that Liunyun Ling had already become the guardian of the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star, so she was already one of their higher-ups. There was no way they would give her to the Moonstar. At most, they would give all the remaining sword-bearers who hadn't had their flag-planting ceremony to the Sunstar. In any case, Liunyun Ling had to belong to the Sunstar. This argument went on for tens of minutes. As the core of this argument and the person being fought over, Liunyun Ling could only sit awkwardly to the side and watch as these sword-bearers threw away their pride to fight over her. But it wasn't appropriate for Liunyun Ling to say anything about this. If she didn't say something right, it might cause a conflict within the entire Shanghai Pass. Thus, Liunyun Ling could only stay silent and wait for these people to come to a conclusion. Seeing that this important meeting was about to descend into an endless argument, Yaguang and Lilith looked at each other and nodded tacitly. They slammed the table and roared, "All of you, shut up." Only then did he manage to suppress this endless quarrel. The sword-bearers of the Sunstar and the Moonstar looked at their two leaders in unison, waiting for them to come to a conclusion. Cough, cough. Actually, I don't think our opinions are important. What matters is Miss Ling's opinion. Yaguang's words were quickly approved by Lilith, who immediately replied, "That's right. I think we should let Miss Ling decide for herself." "Miss Ling, do you want to stay on our planet?" Lilith was too cunning. Under normal circumstances, she would have asked Liunyun Ling which area she wanted to stay in. However, Lilith asked Liunyun Ling if she wanted to stay on planet Suzuka. It sounded like the same question, but it was a choice between two. However, according to psychological research, due to various reasons such as human emotions, when humans answered yes or no questions, and there was no clear difference in benefits between the two, there was an 80% chance that humans would answer yes or no. It was like asking your children whether their father or mother was better. It would be very difficult for them to make a choice. But if you ask his father, would it be better? Then he would most likely answer yes. That was more or less what it meant. My position as the guardian of the Suzaku Imperial Star was snatched from Miss Hong Yu. At that time, I had no choice but to do so in order to fight against the Wu people. Now that the Wu people have left, I should return this position to Miss Hong Yu. Liunyun Ling didn't wait for Lilith to reject her. She raised her great Zhou Tian Star Time banner, pulled it out, and returned it to Hong Yu. This made Hong Yu feel very awkward. She didn't know whether she should take it or not. although she really did want to return to the Vermilion Bird Imperial Star's great heavenly star banner. It wasn't because she coveted this position, but because she was already used to staying in the Vermilion Bird Garrison District. She simply didn't want to change places. Okay. Seeing this, the sword bearers of the Lunar Star cheered together, while the sword bearers of the Sun Star looked as if their mothers had died. In these people's eyes, since Liu Ling took the initiative to pull out the Great Zhou Tian Startime banner, it meant that Liu Ling didn't want to stay in the Sun Star Garrison District. Therefore, Liu Ling had to choose the Lunar Star. Even Lilith herself thought so, which was why her expression was so gloomy that it could drip water. Miss Ling, the guardian of the Imperial Star of the Lunar Star's Tian Shi Imperial Star, will be leaving Shanghai Pass in a month. I can make the decision to give him an early holiday and let him go home early. Today, you can become the guardian of the Imperial Star of Tian Shi Imperial Star, Yao Guang said with a smile. In order to make room for Liu Ling, he didn't even hesitate to remove a sword bearer in advance. However, this didn't anger the original guardian of the Imperial Star of Tian Shi Imperial Star. Instead, it made him very happy. He didn't want to stay a day longer in this damn place where he could die at any time. Being able to have an early holiday was like a pie falling from the sky. How could he have any objections? No. Unexpectedly, Liu Ling shook her head and rejected Yao Guang's good intentions. She said with a slightly regretful expression, "My star shuttle fell in the Imperial Star Garrison District. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens, so I think it's better for me to stay in the Imperial Star Garrison District." Madam Lilith, is there anyone in the position of guardian of the Imperial Star Garrison District now? No one, definitely no one. Sigh, the unlucky old Wang died in the first wave of sneak attacks yesterday. Lilith didn't expect the plot to take such a turn. In the end, Liu Ling still ended up in her own Imperial Star Garrison District. Putting aside the fact that Lao Wang had already been sacrificed, even if Lao Wang had not been sacrificed, she, Lilith, would act like Yao Guang and simply give Lao Wang a long vacation or transfer him to another Emperor Star Garrison area. Even if she had to give up her position as the Sun Garrison, Lilith would be willing. Since this was Liu Ling's choice, no matter how unwilling the sword bearers of the Lunar Star were, they couldn't say anything more. They could only let Liu Ling officially join the ranks of Guardians of the Sun Star. Then, Lilith, since Miss Ling belongs to you, then the remaining 36 sword bearers who haven't gone through the flag planting ceremony will belong to the Lunar Star. What do you think? Yao Guang had no choice but to give up on Liu Ling and ask Lilith for the ownership of the remaining 36 sword bearers. The 36 sword bearers referred to the sword bearers that Gahan had brought back. Lilith had taken advantage of Liu Ling. Moreover, Andreevich and the other sword bearers who had arrived safely on the battlefield didn't leave. It was obvious that Yao Guang had tacitly agreed that they belonged to Lilith. According to Wonderful Pen, the guardian of the Green Dragon Star, Andreevich was extremely powerful. He had killed more than 500 Wu people by himself, and his combat ability was not weaker than that of Liu Ling when she didn't use the Billion Sword Scroll. He was definitely the most powerful sword bearer apart from Liu Ling. Andreevich alone could take on 20 sword bearers, so it was not a loss. Thinking of this, Lilith naturally couldn't compete with Yao Guang for the 36 sword bearers. Therefore, she nodded and tacitly agreed to this deal. Come, the 36 comrades, come sit beside me. We'll be brothers from now on, Yao Guang said warmly to the sword bearers near Gahan. Originally, these sword bearers were very dissatisfied with Yao Guang and Lilith because they had been traded here and they're like goods. But seeing Yao Guang's kind, brotherly smile, the sword bearers didn't dare to say anything. Moreover, it seemed that the Lunar Star was more powerful, so it was obviously safer for them to join the Lunar Star. Therefore, these 36 sword bearers picked up their chairs and placed them behind Yao Guang, officially joining the Lunar Star's lineup. Only 3 people sat still. One was the bald Ku Rock-In, the other was Leslie Dracula, and the last one was Gahan. P.S. I'm sorry to everyone. Ku Rock-In should belong to Liu Ling's team. Therefore, when Gahan and Liu Ling were sword bearers, Kurakin should have been described a lot. However, because the author forgot about this, he didn't describe any details about Kurakin. I'm sorry to everyone. But don't worry, there's nothing missing in the plot. It's just that Kurakin's appearance is a little abrupt. Comrades, do you have any questions? Or are you dissatisfied with the lunar star? Yao Guang frowned, but his tone was still gentle. I'm not dissatisfied. I just owe him my life, so I'm following him now. Kurakin said, pointing at Gahan. I'm not dissatisfied either, but I think this guy is lucky. I should be quite lucky if I follow him. Leslie Dracula also pointed at Gahan. This surprised most of the sword-bearers. Who is this ordinary-looking guy? How could he be followed by two famed sword-bearers? Then, comrade, why don't you join the lunar star? Yao Guang could only ask Gahan. I still have this thing on my head. As Gahan spoke, a flagpole rose above his head. The sword-bearers immediately recognized it as the golden goat Gui's great Zhou Tian Star banner. The others looked at Xiao Mian, who was sitting next to Hong Yu, with a face full of anger. The golden goat Gui was clearly alive. Why would her great Zhou Tian Star banner appear on this person's head? It's okay. Just remove this flag. I'll get you a new one, Yao Guang said gently. Sorry, this isn't up to you. Guhan shook his head and turned to look at Lilith. Miss Lilith, do you think I should remove this great Zhou Tian Star banner? Lilith was stunned by Gahan's question. Who is this guy? She didn't know him at all. So, Lilith lowered her head and whispered to Hong Yu. Chapter 878. Hong Yu, who the hell is he? Why is Xiao Mian's great Zhou Tian Star time banner on his head? Lilith asked Hong Yu. He seems to be a friend of Miss Ling. When Miss Ling left planet Shizuku for planet Azure Dragon, two Wu people attacked. At that time, only he and Xiao Mian were left in the entire Shizuka garrison. Because all of Xiao Mian's sword ladies were broken, he took Xiao Mian's great Zhou Tian Star time banner and killed the two Wu people by himself. Hong Yu answered honestly. Oh, in that case, he's a meritorious person. He took Xiao Mian's great Zhou Tian Star time banner to save the acquired star formation. Lilith nodded. Then his crime of taking the great Zhou Tian Star time banner without permission can be forgiven. You just said that he killed the two Wu people. Does that mean that the two Wu people weren't killed? Yes. Xiao Mian said she saw with her own eyes that the two Wu people escaped in the end. This sword-bearer couldn't catch up at all, but Hong Yu wanted to say that she suspected that the two Wu people might be the Wu people's great shaman, or even the great shaman Xingtian. However, before Hong Yu could speak, Lilith waved her hand and said, as a sword-bearer of the famous sword rank, and with the great Zhou Tian Star time banner that can increase one's power by 3 times, he couldn't even kill the two heaven shaman Wu people and even let them escape. This kind of sword-bearer can only be used in emergencies. He's useless. Give him to the people of Tyne Star, lest they feel unhappy. Since you belong to the 36 people, you should belong to Tyne Star. As for the Ghost Golden Goat's great Zhou Tian Star time banner, please take it off and return it to us. I heard from Hong Yu that you made a lot of contributions in the last battle. Later, I will ask Hong Yu to give you some sword scar crystals as a reward for your contribution. Therefore, after a few words, Lilith decided to give up on Gahan and give him to the people of the lunar star. If Lilith knew that the two Wu people who had been defeated were not heaven witches, but great witches Xingtian and Yushur, Lilith would probably be filled with regret. Since Lilith had made it clear that she didn't want Gahan, of course, Gahan couldn't shamelessly ask to stay on Tyne Star. He just smiled bitterly, took the great Zhou Tian Star time banner off his head, and threw it back to Xiao Mian. Then, he moved his chair and sat behind Yao Guang. Kurakin and Leslie Dracula followed closely behind and moved with Gahan. Welcome, Comrade Gahan. Seeing Guhan sit down behind him, Yao Guang actually stood up and extended his hand to shake Guhan's hand. This was something that had never happened before. Previously, when the other 33 sword-bearers sat down, they only smiled and did not even move their butts, let alone extend their hands to shake Guhan's hand. Thank you. The moment he shook hands with Yao Guang, Guhan suddenly felt Yao Guang pinch the web between his thumb and index finger. When he looked up, he saw a playful expression in Yao Guang's eyes. Could it be that Yao Guang has discovered his identity as the military governor? Guhan guessed instinctively. A careless person like Hong Yu might not be able to see the connection between the military governor and Guhan. But Yao Guang was different. Yao Guang's younger sister, Mingyue, was one of the few players who knew Guhan's true identity. Yao Guang might be able to get some clues from his sister. Even if Mingyue didn't reveal any information about Guhan, Guhan believed that Yao Guang was cunning and had been in contact with his identity as the military governor for so long. It wouldn't be difficult for him to recognize him in real life. With a supreme leader like Yao Guang, Guhan didn't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. After distributing the new sword bearers under Guhan, the meeting began to discuss the issue of rewards after this battle. Shanhai Pass was a place where sword bearers risked their lives. Although there was a call for justice, money and material rewards were indispensable. Otherwise, who would risk their lives for you? Shanhai Pass could be said to be the place with the highest salary and rewards in the human world. Putting the rewards aside, even if the sword bearers didn't do anything in the past 3 years and didn't participate in a single battle, as a famed sword-level sword bearer, they would receive a salary of 100,000 renminbi and a basic salary of 1,000 hero coins every month. If the swordsmen participated in many battles, then the rewards would be even more generous. These wages and rewards would not disappear even if the swordsman died in battle. If the swordsman died in battle, then the rewards would be transferred to the accounts of their family members, ensuring that their family members could live a comfortable and safe life in the base city. Their descendants would also want more subsidies, such as more opportunities to coordinate with the sword lady. Since this was a large-scale battle that affected the entire Shanhai Pass, almost every sword bearer participated in the battle. Therefore, everyone received valuable rewards from this battle, especially the Guardians of the Sun. This was especially true for the Guardians of the Sun. Almost all of the survivors received 500,000 yuan and 50,000 hero coins as a reward, as well as various resources such as sword mark crystals used to make deep sword scars. Among everyone, the one who received the most reward was Liuyan Ling, the sword bearer who fought the shortest time. Because she killed 3 great wizards and thousands of Wu people on her own, Lilith directly announced that she would give Liuyan Ling 130 million renminbi and 11 million hero coins, as well as a set of sword mark imprints for famed sword-level sword ladies. Guhan, who was sitting behind Yao Guang, couldn't help but feel a little jealous. Guhan wasn't jealous of the RMB. Guhan had more than 70 billion in his account. Moreover, after winning the Great Yard meeting, Guhan also won the final bet of the Great Yard meeting. It was estimated that he would earn at least 30 to 40 billion renminbi. This way, Guhan's savings would exceed a shocking 100 billion renminbi. Even among the immortal sword-level sword bearers, this was an extremely rich number. After all, Guhan was one of the world's top 500 richest people. What Guhan was jealous of was the 21 million hero coins. Hero coins and RMB were never exchanged. Even if Guhan used the 100,000 exchange rate, he wouldn't be able to exchange even 1 hero coin. In the sword-wielding shop that specialized in selling sword-wielding items, only hero coins could be used for transactions. Moreover, if Guhan wanted to maintain his privileges as a sword-bearer, he would have to continuously pay taxes with hero coins. With Guhan's current status as a famed swordsman, Guhan had to pay at least 500 hero coins as tax every month. At that moment, Guhan only had some hero coins left in his pocket, which he had earned from completing quests in Mei Ling mountain range. After paying the taxes, he had less than 1,000 hero coins left in his pocket. It wasn't even enough to buy 2 famed sword ladies' deep sword scars up to the 7th grade. He was really poor. Speaking of the sword mark dust, one had to mention the awkward situation that Guhan was currently facing. Although Guhan was now a famed sword wielder, only Qingpin's sword, Deyu sword, and Heavenly sword had reached the 1st grade and activated their ultimate skills. Although this was already a very impressive feat, most of the sword-bearer sword ladies could only reach the 3rd grade. the amount of sword scars needed to reach the second grade, and the first grade was enough to make these sword bearers go bankrupt. However, Guhan did not rely on his own strength to do this. Instead, he relied on the resources left behind by I Ching. It was I Ching who left Guhan a complete set of sword scar imprints that allowed him to succeed. However, a few months later, Guhan was already a famed sword wielder. He now had 3 more sword ladies than before: the past water sword, Qijian sword, and Zhizi sword. The past water sword was easy to obtain. He only needed 1 set of sword scars, but the Qijian sword and Zhizi sword were both famed sword ladies. Each of them needed 25 sets of sword scars to reach the first grade. Currently, a complete set of sword scars was worth around 450,000 hero coins to 500,000 hero coins. The reason why there was a change of 50,000 was because the production of the highest grade sword scars was always uncertain. When the production was low, the price would be higher, and vice versa. It would be cheaper. In short, the price would fluctuate between 450,000 and 500,000 hero coins. In the worst-case scenario, if Guhan wanted all his sword ladies to reach the first grade, he would need 5 million hero coins. When he thought of this number, Guhan began to regret having 2 sword ladies. 2 sword ladies were like a bottomless pit. If Guhan honestly killed monsters to earn money, he might be able to save 5 million hero coins before he turned 50. It was truly worthy of celebration. The reward that Liu Ling received was 11 million hero coins and a complete set of sword scars required by famed sword. This was equivalent to 5 million hero coins, which was equivalent to Guhan's 30 years of hard work. How could Guhan not be jealous? However, when Liu Ling received these rewards, her expression was as calm as an ancient well. She did not seem excited at all. This was normal. Not to mention a complete set of sword scars. The Liu family could even take out a set of Jinni's sword scars without any pressure. Why would Liu Ling be interested in these rewards? She might as well give her the Jiansu. The only thing that the Liu family could not directly give to Liu Ling was the Jiansu. After almost everyone received their rewards, it was finally time for Guhan and the other sword bearers who came as reinforcements to receive their rewards. Putting Liu Ling aside, the ones who received the highest rewards in Guhan's group were Andreevich and the other sword bearers who fought with him on Planet Azure Dragon. They all received millions of RMB and tens of thousands of hero coins. The one who received the highest reward was naturally Andreevich. He received 12 million renminbi and 220,000 hero coins. In comparison, the rewards for Guhan and the others were pitiful. They did not participate in the battle and only hid in the ruins, so their rewards were naturally not high. They only received 100,000 renminbi and 1,000 hero coins as a consolation prize. It was equivalent to receiving an extra month's salary. Guhan was no exception. However, at the end of the rewards, Lilith fulfilled her promise. Although Guhan had only defeated 2 not-so-powerful Wu people at the last moment, he had saved the entire Zhou Tian star battle formation from a certain point of view. Therefore, Lilith generously gave Guhan 1 million RMB and 10,000 hero coins as a reward. It's better than nothing. Guhan accepted the rewards calmly. 1 million RMB is enough for Qingpin to eat for 2 meals. 10,000 hero coins is enough for Qidian, Zhizi, and Shishui to reach level 6 and activate their passive skills. It's somewhat useful. Chapter 879. Quiet. Everyone be quiet. Receiving the reward was naturally a joyous event, so the entire conference room was filled with laughter. If someone entered the conference room at this moment, they would never have imagined that just a few minutes ago, the people in the conference room were arguing as if they had killed their parents. They almost started fighting. When the conference room finally quieted down, Lilith and Yao Guang put on serious expressions at the same time. Their voices were so gloomy that it seemed as if water could drip out of them. I have 2 very important things to discuss with everyone. Yao Guang looked around. Every swordsman who met Yao Guang's gaze felt a chill run down their spine. Finally, Yao Guang's gaze stopped on Liu Ling. Miss Ling, please tell us what happened to you. Tell us why you couldn't make it to the battlefield as planned, and why the battle on the sun was so tragic. Hearing Yao Guang mention the battle on the sun, Lilith couldn't help but clench her fists. More than half of her 7,000 subordinates were gone. If Liu Ling and the others had made it to the battlefield before 8 o'clock in the morning, at least 5,000 of her subordinates would have survived. The swordsmen with famous swords had suffered heavy casualties during the sneak attack, so there weren't enough famous swords to fend off the attacks of the heaven and grand sorcerers of the Wu people. As a result, the ancient sword-level swordsmen lost their protection, resulting in a large number of casualties. If the 60 or so famous sword-level swordsmen had made it to the battlefield in time, the battle would not have been so tragic. The key to the problem was that Liu Ling and the others were late. Lilith, Yao Guang, and the other higher-ups had already heard about what had happened from Andreevich and Liu Ling. It was just that some of the other famous sword-level swordsmen didn't know about it. Therefore, Liu Ling told them what had happened on her star shuttle. Yao Guang also asked Gahan to tell them about what had happened on his star shuttle, as well as how Gahan had met up with Liu Ling's team. The last part was Andreevich's narration. The Romanov family, which was known for its wildness, actually had a meticulous successor. The moment the Romanov family boarded the star shuttle, he had noticed something wrong with the pilot. Taking advantage of the fact that the star force in the heavenly cycle star formation had not completely suppressed his sword element, he had killed the pilot and found out that the pilot had been controlled by the Chevy Corpse tribe. Unfortunately, because he couldn't contact the other star shuttles, Andreevich could only drive the star shuttle to his destination on the Azure Dragon planet. He couldn't contact the other 3 star shuttles. Things are already very clear. The Sorcerer tribe killed the pilot we sent to pick them up and then took control of my star shuttle. They want to let these sword bearers kill them easily before the flag planting ceremony is held. Fortunately, Miss Ling and Guhan were among them. That's why our comrades could survive. Yao Guang concluded, "There's no doubt that this is a very smart plan. If this plan had succeeded, our Zhou Tian star battle formation would have been broken, and no one would be sitting here and having a meeting with me." Yao Guang paused. "However, there's one thing I don't understand. How do people know when our reinforcements would arrive? Only the higher-ups like us know about this. Those ancient sword-bearers don't even know about this. How do people know? I might be able to figure it out." One of the sword-bearers suddenly stood up. His face was filled with grief and anger. It was Li Su. His sword lady's shield was broken, and it couldn't return to the sword. Just wait and see when it was broken by Wu people. Nan Li Su rushed out of the command area and into the battle area. He wanted to force his sword lady to return to the sword by touching the sword hilt. Li Su was very brave. He charged through countless obstacles from the shamans. And in the end, he successfully made his sword Maiden return to her sword and threw her back to the command center. But Li Su was caught by 2 shamans. They broke his legs and his arms, then dragged him to the back and disappeared. We thought that Li Su would be tortured to death, but now that I think about it, I vaguely saw the Shi by Corpse Tribe's Grand Magus Chief elect. She must have used a spell to control Li Su's brain and obtained information about Miss Ling and the others from his memory. Nan Li Su was the guardian of one of the main planets under the Sun Star, Ziwei Imperial Star. He was one of the higher-ups in Shanghai Pass, so he knew about the reinforcements. The Shibai Corpse Tribe was good at manipulating people's memories and bodies. They could even extract human souls. Nan Li Su had sacrificed himself to save his sword lady, but he didn't expect that he would be captured by the Shibai Corpse Tribe's Grand Magus Chief elect. It was not hard to imagine how much the chief-elect had tortured Nan Li Su in order to extract his memories, in order to obtain the secrets in his mind. I didn't expect it to be because of Li Su. Lilith's eyes were filled with tears. I've always told him not to fall in love with his sword lady. Don't have feelings for his sword lady. His sword lady doesn't love him, but he... Lilith's sad words seemed to reveal a lot of interesting things. Of course, that was not the main point. The main point was that the source of the Sorcerer tribe's information was clear. They had obtained information about Fleeting Time Ling and the others through Nanli Su's memories. At least that was how it seemed. No, it's not enough to know this information. The most important thing for Wu people is to control the old drivers that we sent to pick up Miss Ling and the others. This is the most important point. Otherwise, Wu people's plan would not have succeeded. Yao Guang's voice was very penetrating. Lilith, those 4 drivers were all assigned by you, right? Yao Guang, what do you mean? Are you suspecting me? Lilith's voice began to sharpen. Of course I wouldn't suspect you. If something happened to you, you only needed to destroy the Sun Emperor. Wu people didn't have to go through so much trouble. Yao Guang's words eased Lilith's expression. No one would like to be suspected. I just want to know how Lilith chose the drivers and who knows about them. More importantly, when did the Shebi corpse Wu people take control of the drivers' bodies? Yao Guang's words gradually hit the key point of the problem. I didn't deliberately choose the drivers. When I was about to send the drivers to pick up Miss Ling, there were only these 4 people waiting in the driver's lounge of the Star Shuttle's control panel. I didn't even think about it before I sent them to pick her up, Lilith said while holding her forehead in distress. The number of drivers in the Sun Star and the Moon Star is fixed. According to the rules, there must be more than 10 drivers on standby in the driver's lounge at all times, waiting to help the retreating sword bearers. But when Lilith went, there were only 4 people in there. Don't you think it's strange? Yao Guang said. I asked those 4 people, and they said that the other drivers had already been sent by Hong Yu and Magic Pen to pick up some of the sword bearers who had retreated from the North Star, so there were only 4 of them left in the lounge. I didn't think too much about it. Apparently, she had already discovered that a large part of the reason for this was his own carelessness. Miss Hong Yu, Comrade Magic Pen, did you arrange for the drivers to pick them up? Yao Guang turned to the 2 of them and asked. Yes. Hong Yu and Magic Pen nodded at the same time, but immediately shook their heads. But not this morning. I have already arranged for the drivers to pick them up at about 5:30 a.m. yesterday. At about 5:30 a.m., the retreating sword bearers had already been picked up, so there should be 10 people in the driver's lounge. At 8 a.m., Lilith, please check the surveillance video of the driver's lounge. I want to see what happened to those drivers. Although Lilith was a little reluctant to be commanded by Yao Guang like this, in order to find out the truth of the matter, Lilith obediently played the video. The video started at 3 o'clock in the morning. There were 10 drivers sitting in the driver's lounge, playing with their personal terminals in boredom. At about 5 a.m., the terminal communication in the driver's lounge rang. After receiving the communication, 6 drivers immediately got up and left the driver's lounge, leaving only 4 drivers sitting in the lounge. The video paused here. Yao Guang immediately asked Gahan and others to identify whether the drivers who picked them up were these 4 drivers. But the result was unexpected. After careful confirmation by Gahan and Lian Ling, they told Yao Guang that the people who picked them up were not among these 4 drivers, but someone else. So the video continued to play. When it was 6 a.m., the door of the driver's lounge was pushed open again, and the drivers who had left before returned. But when they left, there were 6 people, and now there were only 4 people left. Then the 4 drivers who stayed in the room asked the 4 people who came back where the other 2 people went. The 4 drivers said very painfully that the other 2 people were killed by Wu people when the Star Shuttle landed. They could not come back. So the driver's lounge was suddenly filled with sadness. The remaining 8 drivers hugged each other to comfort each other. At this time, the terminal communication in the driver's lounge rang again. It seemed that the 4 drivers were going to go on a mission. Because the 4 people who came back before had already gone on a mission, the 4 drivers who had rested before should naturally go on mission. It was a pity that the 4 drivers never came back after they went out. At 7:30 a.m., Lilith walked to the driver's lounge and began to issue the task of picking up Gahan and others to the 4 drivers waiting here. The video paused here again, but there was no need for Gahan and others to identify carefully because Gahan immediately recognized the driver, named Lu Yuanjia. He was among the 4 drivers waiting in the driver's lounge. After that, Lian Ling and Andreevich also confirmed that their drivers were among them. Basically, we can get to the bottom of it. I believe that before 3 o'clock, the 10 drivers in the driver's lounge were normal humans. However, during that mission, These drivers were ambushed by the Wu people, and their brains were controlled by the Wu people of the Chevy Zombie tribe. Then, they returned to the sun on the Star Shuttle. Because returning on the Star Shuttle can avoid the scanning of many Wu people scanners outside the battlefield, these drivers controlled by the Wu people could not be found out. Yao Guang said, No, we have considered this situation before, so we also set up the Wu people scanners at the exit of the console. These drivers have to go through these scanners when they leave the console to return to the driver's lounge. How do they manage to deceive everyone? There is only one possibility. Yao Guang closed his eyes. Although I don't want to admit it, I have to say this. We have a spy from the Wu people among us. He turned off the scanners at the console at the critical moment. Whoosh! Hearing this, all the sword bearers stood up at the same time. If these words did not come out of Yao Guang's mouth, they would never believe that there was a spy from the Wu people among the humans. Chapter 880. Almost everyone present could not accept Yao Guang's words. What did he mean by there was a traitor? How could there be a traitor among the sword bearers? Whether it was Yuan Ko or the Wu people, they only had two ways to deal with humans they caught. They could either lock them up as slaves or food, or kill them directly. In any case, humans who had fallen into the hands of Yuan Ko or the Wu people had never lived for more than a month. Therefore, even if it was an ordinary person, most of them would only wish for death after falling into the hands of Yuan Ko. They would never think of becoming a traitor. As for the sword bearers, it was even more impossible because the sword bearers and the sword ladies shared the same purple palace. At the same time, the sword ladies were extremely sensitive to the heart of the sword bearers. Once the sword bearers betrayed them, the sword ladies would immediately know about it. Then they would risk their lives to stop their sword bearers, or even perish together with their sword bearers. All in all, ever since the Shanghai Pass, ever since the Great Calamity, there were no more than 10 human traitors on record. Among them, there were only 3 sword bearers. As for the Shanghai Pass, there had never been such a thing. Although I don't want to believe this, the various circumstances have proven that there's a Wu people's man hidden among us. He was the one who helped the Wu people to ambush the Supreme and Purple Myrtle Star, causing the death of the Purple Myrtle Star's guardian. At the same time, he conspired to kill our old driver and help the Shi Bai Corpse tribe to deceive everyone, Yao Guang said. That's not necessarily true. Gahan could not help but shake his head because he suddenly thought of Sha Sha and Gu Xuanwu. Both of them were Yuan Ko, but they had also avoided the humans' flawless scanning equipment and lived like fish in water in Yanjing City. If Sha Sha hadn't taken the initiative to reveal her strength, others might have thought that she was just a sword maiden. Not to mention Gu Xuanwu, no one suspected his identity until now. If there was a third Wu people like Gu Xuanwu and Sha Sha, then all the problems could be explained. It was this Wu people who had snuck into the group of sword bearers and done all this in secret. Yao Guang, there's no point in guessing. I'm going to pull up all the surveillance cameras in the control room. I want to see if he has the ability to hide from my surveillance cameras. Therefore, Lilith immediately began to frantically search through the videos, and soon locked on several surveillance videos from the time when the 4 drivers came back. In the video, the 4 drivers got off the Star Shuttle and went straight through the scanner, but the scanner did not respond. If one looked closely at the video, they could see that the indicator light of the scanning device was off, which meant that the scanning device had been turned off. This proved that Yao Guang's guess was correct. Lilith's face turned cold. She began to check the surveillance cameras around the scanning device. Then, she found that 10 minutes before the 4 drivers returned, a sneaky figure approached the scanning device. At the same time, the power of the scanning device was turned off, and the entire scanning device stopped working. Who is this person? Everyone stared at the surveillance video, trying to see who the figure in the surveillance video was. However, this figure was clearly very vigilant. His body was bulging, and it was unknown how many clothes he wore. Even his head was specially covered with a dimensional alloy mask. The surveillance video couldn't see the person's face and body shape, so it was impossible to guess who this person was. However, Lilith was not willing to give up. She began to constantly check the surveillance cameras along the way the person walked, trying to find some clues. Unfortunately, this person entered the control panel dressed like this, and the surveillance cameras naturally couldn't monitor every corner of the room. So in the end, this person easily left the line of sight of the surveillance cameras, and no one knew who this person was. However, there was an unexpected discovery from these surveillance cameras, and that was the whereabouts of the 4 drivers who were deceived by the Chevy Corpse tribe. On the way to the flying platform, they were killed by the tightly wrapped person in an instant. Before their blood could even fall to the ground, their bodies were put into the dimensional pocket and completely disappeared without a trace. All the surveillance cameras stopped there, and there were no other clues after that. Lilith pinched her head with a headache, looked at Yao Guang, and then looked at the others. Whether there is a traitor or not, it seems that Wu people's people have already infiltrated among us. Everyone, try to think about it. Did you notice anyone acting strangely during the battle? If you did, speak up boldly. This is also for everyone's safety, and there is no need to worry about other things. Lilith actually wanted everyone to expose each other, which made everyone look at each other. Although on the surface, Lilith said it was for everyone's safety and worried about other things. But if they really began to expose each other, it would be fine if they were right, but if the exposed thing was later proven to be wrong, the friendship between the person who exposed and the person who was exposed would inevitably be over. Moreover, to these sword-bearers, everyone around them was their brothers and partners who fought to the death. If they made wild guesses and exposed just because of some groundless things, would they still be sword-bearers? Therefore, Lily waited for a full 5 minutes, and no one took the initiative to stand up and speak. The atmosphere became more and more awkward. In the end, Yao Guang smoothed things over, saying that this matter would be carried out in private in the future. The others could send him an email with their names hidden, and he would not reveal any information about the person who exposed them. Only then did they manage to get through this awkward topic. However, in the end, Yao Guang suddenly turned around to look at Gahan and asked Gahan very seriously and sincerely, "Comrade Gahan, what do you think about this matter? Do you have any thoughts? You can speak up boldly." Yao Guang's action puzzled everyone. Of course, it was okay to ask others for their opinions, but why did he ask Gahan, the new sword-bearer's opinion? He had just joined Shanghai Pass, and he did not know anyone around him. What opinion could he have? What opinion could he have? At this time, the sword-bearers also realized that Yao Guang seemed to treat Gahan a little differently, and vaguely, there was a hint of respect. Yao Guang, the guardian of Taiyin Star, actually respected a newcomer like Gahan. Could it be that there was some kind of shady deal going on? This time, Gahan did not hide his strength, because he felt that it was not the time to do so. Then I will speak my opinion. It was a terrible thing to have a spy from the Wu people among the sword-bearers. They could survive this crisis, but they might not be so lucky in the next crisis. Therefore, for the sake of humanity, Gahan had to speak his opinion. First of all, I think that Nan Li Su's matter is just a cover. Regardless of whether Nan Li Su's memory has been read by the chief-elect or not, I'm afraid that everything related to us is already under the control of the sorcerer tribe. Guhan's words made everyone tremble. But why did Guhan say this? The reason is simple. The timing doesn't match. Guhan then explained, I just checked the battle report. After Nan Li Su was captured by the Wu people, the Star Shuttle arrived at the Ziwei Imperial Star's garrison area a few minutes later. According to the inference just now, the 6 drivers were killed by the Wu people at this time, and then the Wu people of the Chevy Corpse tribe took control of their bodies. Guhan paused. In theory, it seems to make sense. The chief-elect learned about our reinforcements from Nan Li Su's memory, so he immediately sent the Wu people to kill the drivers and take control of their bodies. Everything seems reasonable, but in reality, this is impossible. The Star Shuttle landed in a relatively safe area, so it must be under the protection of the sword-bearers who were preparing to retreat. Normally, the Wu people would not be able to get close to the Star Shuttle and kill the drivers so quickly that the other sword-bearers would not be able to detect them. Therefore, only the great shaman of the Yinzi tribe, Fei Lian, could do this. Only he has the ability to hide from most of the sword maidens and kill the drivers at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, he also injected the seeds of the Wu people of the Shebi Corpse tribe. However, 15 minutes before the retreat, Fei Lian appeared on the battlefield of Suzaku, with the distance between Suzaku and Ziwei Star. Unless Fei Lian flew at full speed, there was no way he could have arrived in just 15 minutes. This means that the sorcerer tribe knew about us at least 15 minutes before the Star Shuttle arrived. At that time, Comrade Nanli Su was still in the command area and did not take any action. Guhan's explanation was very detailed, and the others all nodded in agreement. At the same time, they looked at Guhan with approval. They felt that this guy was very smart. But why did the Wu people pretend that it was Nanli Su who leaked the information? One of the sword bearers asked in confusion, because the Wu people wanted to cover up something very important. The spy they placed among us must be a sword bearer who knew about the information beforehand. I believe that not many sword bearers would know about this at that time. This way, the two of you can greatly reduce the scope of suspicion. I have 16 people with me. Lilith sighed. Clearly, she was referring to the 16 sword bearers on the Sun Star who knew about Guhan and the others. However, Lilith quickly added, only 6 of them are still alive. I have 1 less than you, 15 people in total. 12 of them are still alive. Including the 2 of us, there are a total of 20 people under suspicion. As soon as Yao Guang finished speaking, the people in the conference room began to whisper among themselves. Okay, let's put this matter aside for now. We'll talk about it when we have more evidence. Yao Guang stopped this topic. These 20 people were not ordinary sword bearers, but the higher-ups of the sword bearers. This included all the guardians of the Emperor Star and some of the powerful sword bearers of the main star. If they became suspicious of these people and started to openly investigate them, these people might not have the mood to properly defend against the possible attack of the sorcerer tribe. Chapter 881. After ending the discussion about the traitor, there was only one last topic left, and that was the missing Ashima and Ladia. They were the only ones among the 4 groups of sword bearers who hadn't returned to the garrison area. Of course, most of the sword bearers had their own judgment about their whereabouts. Obviously, not everyone was as lucky as Andreevich, Liunian Ling, and Gahan. Ashima and Ladia's team must have fallen into the Wu people's trap and died in the hands of the Wu people. It was believed that after the garrison area was fully recovered, the bodies of Ashima and the others would be found, and their whereabouts would be determined. It was just that they didn't know how the Sword Committee would explain the problem of their Holy Maiden to Jerusalem Bay City. After all, it wasn't just the Holy Maiden. If the Holy Maiden was dead, then so be it. At worst, they could just choose another one. What was really important was the sword maidens in the hands of the Holy Maiden. That set of Allah's swords was the lifeblood of Jerusalem. They were the most important sword maidens in Jerusalem. God knew what kind of crazy reaction Jerusalem would have after knowing this news. However, this wasn't something that the sword bearers in Shanhai Pass needed to worry about. If they had the ability, they could rush into Shanhai Pass. This was a forbidden area for sword bearers of spirit sword level and above. Even Jiandi didn't dare to go deep into it. The next step was to go back to their respective homes. Yao Guang continued to discuss with Lilith in the conference room about allocating those sword bearers who originally belonged to Tyne Star to Tyne Star. They were busy until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and everything was finally over. Then, the sword bearers of Tyne Star took Gahan and the others back to the garrison area of Tyne Star on the Star Shuttle. Of course, this time, the driver went through 3 scans. After confirming that there was absolutely no Wu people of the Shebi Corpse tribe in his body, the Star Shuttle finally took off. After more than 20 minutes of flight, Gahan and the others arrived at Tyne Star Garrison from Sun Star Garrison. Inside the Star Shuttle, Leslie Dracula approached Gahan and asked Gahan about the situation of the solid black tortoise. Gahan, on the other hand, shook his head in regret. The Gu Xuanwu had disappeared in the battle, and no one knew if she was dead or alive. This made Leslie Dracula sigh endlessly. At the same time, he was also a little curious. In the Shanghai Pass Shan Tower, Gahan had fought with all the sword-bearers in order to strengthen the Black Tortoise. It seemed like he really liked his younger sister. However, after his sister went missing, Gahan didn't seem to be too sad at all. It seemed that there must be some secret that he didn't know. By the time the Star Shuttle landed, it was already 5:30 in the afternoon. However, the entire Tyene Star garrison area was not peaceful at this time. A large number of personnel were transferred, and the entire Star Shuttle's control panel was busy. At the same time, Gahan and the other new sword-bearers also needed to be assigned to different garrison areas. They needed to officially hold the flag-planting ceremony and become members of Shanghai Pass. Under the guidance of the other sword-bearers, Gahan and the others entered a huge hall inside the Tyene Star garrison. In the hall, there were 182 large Zhou Tian Star banners and 7,400 small Zhou Tian Star banners. It was equivalent to all the star banners of the Tyene Star garrison being placed here. Some readers might find it strange. Weren't there still some Zhou Tian Star banners inserted in the bodies of the sword-bearers? Why were there all the Zhou Tian Star banners here? Actually, the creation of the Heavenly Cycle Star banner was not difficult, and the materials used were not particularly precious. After all, the star banner needed to be inserted into someone else's purple palace. Some sword-bearers didn't want to use the Zhou Tian Star banners that had been used by others. Therefore, it was decided that during the rotation, all the new sword-bearers could use the brand new Zhou Tian Star banners. Of course, under special circumstances, there would also be people like Gahan and Liu Ling, who would directly use the Zhou Tian Star banners of other guardians. The whole flag-planting ceremony didn't have any special steps, and the process was very simple. The sword-bearers in charge of the ceremony would read the name of a person and the name of a star. Then, the sword-bearers whose name was read would walk to the side of the host, take the Zhou Tian Star banners from the others, and insert them into their own heads. The whole process was very fast, and it was carried out at the speed of 1 person per minute. Gahan noticed that almost all the sword-bearers were assigned to the Great Zhou Tian Star banners of the guest star, which are the lowest level of the Great Zhou Tian Star banners. Of course, this was very normal. After all, Gahan and the others were all newcomers, and they didn't have much credit. Naturally, they had to start from zero. Leslie Dracula was assigned to the Cirrus Tung Star garrison area in Anjiji Township, which was under the Baihu Imperial Star. However, after the flag-planting ceremony, Leslie Dracula's face was obviously very unhappy. According to the customs of Shanghai Pass, after the sword-bearers completed the flag-planting ceremony and became the guardian of a certain garrison area, for convenience, others could directly use the name of the garrison area to call each other. For example, Hong Yu could call him Master Hong Yu or Master Vermilion Bird. Another example was Xiao Mian. She could call him Xiao Mian or Gui Jinyang. So obviously, Gahan could now call Leslie Dracula, or Curly Tongue. This name was unacceptable to Curly Tongue. In Anjiji Township, there were a total of 9 garrison areas: Ong Star, Tian A Star, Moon Star, Tian Chi Star, Stone Star, Tianyin Star, Chuhao Star, Tian Yuan Star, and Cirrus Tongue Star. All the other garrison areas had good names. So why did Curly Tongue's name fall on her head? Just as Leslie Dracula was feeling very sad about this, the host finally called Gahan's name. Sword-bearer Gahan, subordinate of the Baihu Imperial Star, Water Ape Constellation, Shit Garrison Area. The host read out meticulously. However, when he read out the word shit, even a usually serious host couldn't help but laugh. "Hey, I didn't hear wrong, right? You're shit," Leslie Dracula said in disbelief. Was there a constellation with this name in this world? "You didn't hear wrong." Gahan shook his head. Unlike Leslie Dracula, who didn't know much about constellations, Gahan had some understanding of all the constellations in Shanghai Pass. Of course, he knew that this garrison area called Shit was indeed one of the garrison areas of the Water Ape Constellation. There were a total of 7 garrison areas under the Water Ape Constellation: Orion Star, Vanquishing Star, Jade Well Star, Army Well Star, Screen Star, Toilet Star, and Shit Star. This was absolutely true. If you don't believe me, you can look it up in books. In myths and legends, the water ape was said to be an officer under the Baihu imperial star who was in charge of punishing people. The Orion star referred to the three armies. The vanquishing star referred to the officer in charge of punishing people. The jade well star referred to the wells made of jade. The army well star referred to the underground wells used by the army. The screen star referred to the toilet screen. The toilet star referred to the toilet, and a shit star naturally referred to shit. The explanation was that the water ape was the officer in charge of punishing people in the three armies. He would punish the constellations that had committed a crime by going to the toilet used by the army and pouring the shit into the underground wells. Here, one couldn't help but admire the wisdom and imagination of the ancients. Perhaps even most modern Shidian authors wouldn't be able to connect the constellations in the sky with shit. In any case, as long as Gahan stuck the Zhou Tian star banner on his head, Gahan would be associated with shit for the rest of his life. Even if Gahan was promoted to become the guardian of the lunar star in the future, the word shit would always be on Gahan's head. Even if no one dared to use this name to call Gahan, it would definitely become the best name to mock Gahan behind his back. If Gahan's fame was limited to Shanhai Pass, then it would be fine. However, if Gahan's fame grew outside of Shanhai Pass, then this nickname would definitely spread far and wide. In the future, even if Gahan became Jindi, people would still secretly point at Gahan's back and say, "This is the famous shit Jindi." However, even though he thought of these embarrassing things, Gahan's expression still didn't change. He calmly stuck the Zhou Tian star banner into his purple palace and finally returned to his seat. "Comrade shit, hello." As soon as Gahan sat down, Leslie Dracula, who was next to him, couldn't help but take the initiative to approach him and use this brand new term to tease Gahan. Leslie Dracula especially wanted to see Gahan's angry and helpless face. Unfortunately, her wish didn't come true. Gahan's expression didn't change at all. He just faintly responded to Leslie Dracula, "Comrade Curly Tongue, hello." After Gahan, it was Ku Rakin's turn. In the end, the unlucky Ku Rakin actually received the Toilet Star's great Zhou Tian star banner and naturally formed a toilet duo with Gahan. However, compared to Gahan's outstanding self-restraint, Ku Rakin's expression wasn't so calm. Looking at his tightly clenched fist, Gahan had no doubt that Ku Rakin would definitely get the chance to beat up the host who was in charge of the distribution. When everyone's flag planting ceremony ended, they were led by the other sword bearers to receive their supplies in Shanhai Pass. Then, they boarded the Star Shuttle and went to their newly assigned garrison area. "Boss, according to your instructions, everything has been distributed." After everyone left, the host suddenly walked into the back hall. Yao Guang was waiting there with a smile on his face. "Let me ask you, how did the sword bearer who received the shit star react?" Yao Guang asked with a smile. "His reaction is a little strange." The host frowned. "This is the first time I've seen a guy who was assigned to the shit star, but didn't get angry. He's still calm and collected. This guy is really not simple, huh? Go. There's nothing for you here." Yao Guang didn't say much and directly let the host go. "It's really you, military governor." Yao Guang's lips curled into a strange smile. Chapter 882. The area guarded by the SH*T star was about the size of county. The original SH*T throne was located in the middle of a piece of flat land. However, this SH*T throne had already been destroyed by the sorcerer tribe, so Guhan had to repair it. Fortunately, the repair process was not troublesome. Before Gahan left the Taiyin Star garrison, he had collected a set of supplies from the military supply office, including the star crystal needed to repair the throne. He only needed to place the star crystal on the broken throne and input his star power. Then, the throne would be able to repair itself with the power of the Zhou Tian star battle formation. However, the process was relatively long. It would take 12 hours. The SH*T star was the outermost area of the Baihu Imperial Star. On both sides of the SH*T star garrison area were the Toilet Star garrison area and the Screen Star garrison area. However, because there were not enough people, there were no sword bearers in charge of guarding the Screen Star garrison area. Apart from the leader of the Ginseng Water Apes, only Guhan and Zhuluren were responsible for guarding the famous sword-level sword bearers in the entire Ginseng Water Ape area. The other original guards had either died on the battlefield or been transferred to the Sun Star. Moreover, there should have been 36 satellite guards under Gahan's command. In other words, 36 ancient sword-bearers with small Zhou Tian Star banners would cooperate with Gahan. It was a pity that the higher-ups said that there was a shortage of manpower, so they transferred all the guards who originally belonged to Guhan and Zhuluren away. In other words, there were only Guhan and Zhuluren left to guard the 2 large counties and the empty areas of the 3 surrounding counties. This undoubtedly put the 2 of them in great danger. If the Wu people gathered their forces to attack these areas, the other 2 sword-bearers would have no other way to survive other than to escape. However, if it was Gahan, unless the Wu people had more than 4 great magi, Gahan would not be afraid of any enemies. However, for safety's sake, Guhan did not release his guardian's mansion when he was repairing the throne. Instead, he sat near the throne and meditated, just in case the sorcerer tribe came to attack him. However, the sorcerer tribe seemed to have completely behaved themselves. Until the throne was repaired, no one came to disturb Gahan. After the throne was repaired, Gahan, as the controller of the large star banner in this area, had complete control over the area. If any Wu people stepped into the area that Gahan was in charge of, the large Zhou Tian star banner in Guhan's purple mansion would immediately alert Gahan, and Guhan would be awakened from his sleep. Of course, this control was not absolute. When facing some Wu people, the automatic alarm would not work, such as the great Magus Fei Lian, who had bypassed the area that was under the control of countless Imperial Star Protectors and killed the Imperial Star Protector of Ziwei. Fei Lian wouldn't come looking for me out of boredom, would he? Gahan yawned. Gahan had been in a state of concentration for more than a day, and he could not help but feel a little tired. He took out the space sphere that the Tyene Star garrison had given him and threw it onto the throne. A house the size of a villa wrapped around the throne, and this small villa became Gahan's first garrison residence in Shanhai Pass, the Shi Sing garrison. This was really worthy of celebration. After entering the garrison residence, Gahan first released all of his sword maidens and gave each of them their own rooms. He then found his master bedroom and fell asleep. He slept until the next morning, where he woke up from the rubbing of silk. When he opened his eyes to take a look, it felt like the butt of a poor man wrapped in silk panties was rubbing against his face. An indescribable smell was swirling around Guhan's nose. This was indeed befitting of Guhan's new title. Could it be that the sorcerer tribe has really become obedient? Guhan stretched lazily and muttered to himself in disbelief. In fact, Guhan knew that the Wu people had most likely become obedient. If the sword-bearers had lost 60% of their combat power, then the Wu people had lost at least 70% of their combat power. Therefore, the Wu people situation was not much better than the sword-bearers. The previous attack had failed, and the sword-bearers' line of defense had reorganized. It was impossible for the Wu people to break through the defense a second time. Since that was the case, there was no need for the sorcerer tribe to send their precious forces to attack the scattered guardian residences of the humans. Instead, they should consider how to hide their tribe so that they would not be found by the enraged human sword-bearers in Star Massacre. Although the sorcerer tribe could resurrect their lost combat power in a few years, the sword-bearers could recover their combat power much faster than the sorcerer tribe. Next week, the sword spirit of the Guei Hall would arrive with a large group of reinforcements. At that time, the tables would turn and the sword-bearers would be the ones to cause trouble for the sorcerer tribe. After considering the matter of the wizard tribe, all that was left was the problem of poverty. Guhan picked up Qing Xiao, who was lying on the bed with her buttocks up, and then slapped her on both sides of her little buttocks, causing her to cry out in pain, but at least she woke up. "Asshole Gahan, why did you slap my butt? My butt will hurt," Qing Pin said in an aggrieved tone. "All right, Qing Pin, I have something important to ask you. I hope you can answer me truthfully." Guhan grabbed the lively poor girl in front of him like he was grabbing a kitten and said while looking into her big eyes, "Ask away. As long as Gahan asks Qing Pin will tell him." It was rare for Qing Pin to say something that warmed Gahan's heart. "First of all, what's wrong with your body? Did you awaken some strange ability?" Gahan asked. "Huh? What did you say?" Qing Pin doesn't understand. Qing Pin, who had just said that she would tell Gahan everything, was now shamelessly pretending to be deaf and mute. "Qing Pin, don't think that I can't tell. Not only does your body's attack ignore the Wu people's defense, but it can also break the great shaman Xingtian's weapon. This is definitely not an ability that an ancient sword maiden should have. Qing Pin, can you tell me why?" Gahan really hoped that Qing Pin could tell him the answer to this question. Actually, back in the Miling Mountain Range, Gahan had already suspected that Qing Pin was not an ordinary ancient sword maiden. After all, that young girl Qing Pin's performance had left a deep impression on Gahan. Gahan had also asked Qing Pin this question a few times, but Qing Pin would always play dumb and dodge it. This time, Gahan felt that he had to get to the bottom of this. "And that's not all that you're amazing. Under normal circumstances, after the Wu people die, they should turn into blood and flow into the soil, returning to the embrace of Zhu Wu's essence. But the Wu people who died in your hands will leave behind a corpse. I can also feel that when the Wu people die, something from their bodies will enter your body. So I'm guessing that your body has the ability to absorb the essence of the Wu people. That's why the Wu people's bodies can't turn into blood and return to the soil." Guhan decided not to beat around the bush with Qing Pin and directly told him all the problems that he had discovered. "And there's also the last battle with Xingtian. I suspect that Xingtian seems to know something. Although he mentioned the Qing Pin sword, I have a feeling that he was not talking about the Qing Pin sword, but another sword. Qing Pin, tell me, why is that?" Hearing Gohan's words, Qing Pin obviously began to hesitate. There was a struggle in her eyes, as if she was struggling to tell Guhan the truth. "Gahan, I really—" Qing Pin opened her mouth and was about to tell the truth. Then, her body began to twitch violently. Then, like an inflated balloon, she began to expand continuously until she became a young girl in Gahan's arms. "I didn't expect you to appear." Seeing the young girl Qing Pin, Gahan couldn't help but smile bitterly. Originally, he just wanted to ask about the truth, but he didn't expect to force this ancestor to come out. "I have no choice. That little girl is too stupid. She was actually able to get the truth out of you with just a few words. This is the only way I can make her shut up." This was the first time Gahan saw the young girl Qing Pin in her normal state. It was also the first time Gahan carefully looked at the young girl Qing Pin. Although the young girl Qing Pin looked exactly like Qing Pin, the young girl Qing Pin and the cute Qing Pin had a completely different temperament. One was a cute baby that could melt Gahan's heart, and the other was a cosmic princess who didn't care about anything in the world. "All right, I've always wanted to have a good talk with you. It's just that I don't know how to make you come out. Can you talk to me?" Gahan asked sincerely. "Let go of me first." The young girl Qing Pin looked at Guhan's arms that were hugging her. "I'm sorry." Guhan immediately loosened his arms and put the young girl Qing Pin on the ground. "I have no interest in talking to you, but if I don't explain some things clearly to you, I'm afraid that you will ruin my plan. So, I have to talk to you reluctantly." The young girl Qing Pin kept talking about the me. No one knew who her me was. "Before you talk to me, can I ask you a question?" Gahan sighed. "No. You just listen to what I tell you. You are not qualified to ask me anything." The young girl Qing Pin curled her hair with her fingers. "First, you are not allowed to ask that idiot anything about me. My body has already been mercifully given to you to use, so you should be grateful and use it. Don't think about useless things. Second, you have to kill all the Wu people here. Then find 12 drops of Zhu Wu's blood essence and integrate them into my body. Do you understand? Third, in any case, you have to remember the first two conditions. I will tell you the third condition later." Cough, cough. It seemed like the third condition of our young girl Qing Pin was just to make up the numbers. "I can agree to these 3 conditions, but you have to agree to one condition of mine. Guhan suddenly stood up and pressed his hands on the young girl Qing Pin's shoulders. He said loudly, "I don't care who you are. What do you want to do? But you have to leave Qing Pin's body and return the real Qing Pin to me. This is not a place you should stay." What a joke. Can't you see who is the real Qing Pin? The young girl Qing Pin suddenly sneered and spat out the word cut. Guhan's hands that were pressing the young girl Qing Pin suddenly went numb. It was as if they were not his hands. The young girl Qing Pin took a step back and broke free from Guhan's control. "But I can promise you one thing. As long as you kill all the Wu people, I can at least let you be with the Qing Pin you want in your lifetime." The young girl Qing Pin's body began to shrink rapidly. It seemed like she was going to change back to the cute Qing Pin. "But remember, if you dare to ask any more questions, I don't mind cleaning the memory of this body." Chapter 883. Can I continue to be heartless? This was the first thing Qing Pin asked Guhan after waking up. But this sentence revealed a hint of sorrow, causing Guhan's eyes to sting fiercely, and tears actually rolled down uncontrollably. "Don't worry, Qing Pin. Even if I have to use up all my strength, I will let you live your heartless life." Guhan hugged Qing Pin tightly in his arms. It was as if Qing Pin would leave him if he let go. Perhaps it was because the appearance of the young girl Qing Pin had drained a lot of Qing Pin's energy. So Qing Pin, who had just slept for a day, fell into a deep sleep in Guhan's arms again. One pauper to 8 paupers, who hadn't seen each other for a long time, also escaped from poverty's hair and flew back into Guhan's hair. "Sleep." Guhan gently stroked Qing Pin and then left the master bedroom. He began to inspect his new home, which was the Shi Sing garrison. Although it was much smaller than the Sunstar garrison, Guhan's garrison residence was big enough compared to the other houses. After walking around, he found that there were more than 10 different bedrooms in the garrison residence. In addition, there were many small rooms on the second floor of the garrison residence. Each room had 2 double-decker steel wire beds. These small rooms could sleep 40 people. It seemed that these small rooms were prepared for the ancient sword-bearers under Guhan. Although they had their own garrison residence, if the SH*T planet was attacked by the Wu people, these ancient sword-bearers would all retreat to Guhan's garrison residence and cooperate with Guhan to defend. Therefore, Guhan's garrison residence had to be prepared for these ancient sword-bearers. Apart from a large number of bedrooms, there were also many recreational facilities in the Guardian's mansion, such as a swimming pool, a gym, and a game room. It could greatly satisfy the sword-bearer's basic pleasure in life without fighting. However, the most interesting thing in the Guardian's mansion was not these rooms, but a pair of maids who were affectionately called cute dolls by some of the sword-bearers. It was said that this pair of female servants had been designed according to the appearance of a pair of twin female servant sisters who had been popular all over the world before the Great Calamity. Their petite bodies and pretty faces were exactly the same, making it hard for people to distinguish their identities. Fortunately, one of their hair colors was pink and the other blue. The red one was the older sister, and the blue one was the younger sister. This pair of sisters weren't real human sisters, but rather cute dolls created by humans. Their functions were just like their name suggested, dolls that could be used for love. Their functions were similar to inflatable dolls from before the apocalypse, but their functions and authenticity far surpassed those of inflatable dolls. First of all, they had low intelligence and could carry out basic communication with humans. At the same time, they could make more than 160 kinds of movements and postures. When they weren't in use, they could serve tea, massage people's backs and legs, wash clothes, cook, clean, and do other things that maids were supposed to do. When they were in use, they could do many indescribably cute things according to the user's request. This was because, apart from the Tian Garrison and the Sun Guard Mansion, ordinary human female servants were not allowed to exist in the Shanghai Pass. Most of the sword ladies didn't want to have relations with their sword bearers. Therefore, when the Shanghai Pass was first built, the sword bearers could only use their fingers to relieve their stress. Fortunately, the Sword Committee headquarters understood this and specially ordered people to research and develop cute dolls. They were then given to every sword-bearer who joined the Shanghai Pass for free, becoming the best tool for them to relieve their loneliness. Moreover, these dolls could be placed in a dimensional space. As long as the sword-bearer didn't die, there was usually no risk of them being lost. If one wasn't satisfied with the appearance of the dolls, they could customize dolls with different appearances according to their own needs. If one was more interested, they could even buy 20 to 30 dolls at the same time to keep them happy. Rest assured, these dolls weren't expensive. They only cost a few 100,000 renminbi. They didn't even need hero coins. Master, please give us names. As soon as they saw the pair of cute dolls, the two dolls took the initiative to ask Gahan to give them a name. You'll be called Om and Diam, Gahan said casually. The original names of these two dolls had long been unverifiable. However, many scholars said with certainty that their names must have the word mu in them. So Gahan casually gave them these two names. Of course, Gahan didn't have any special interest in Om and the Diam sisters. At this time, his group of sword ladies were sitting on the sofa in the living room, looking at Gahan strangely. Even if Gahan wanted to do something, he didn't have the face to do it. Did something happen to Qingpin? Seeing Gahan appear in front of her, Qidian's face was full of worry. As Gahan's sword ladies, although they couldn't perceive each other's specific thoughts. However, they could rely on a kind of connection between them to feel each other's emotional fluctuations. For example, before this, all the sword ladies sitting here felt that Qingpin's emotions had begun to fluctuate violently, as if she was in some kind of intense battle. Her emotions became very unstable, and the other sword ladies could feel as if their brains were about to explode. It's nothing. There was a small situation, and she is now asleep, Gahan said lightly. It was better not to let the other sword ladies know about the young girl Qingpin. Brother, you won't do anything strange to Qingpin, will you? She's still a child. If you have any desires, little sister, I can help you. Douyu threw herself into Gahan's arms and said some German words of orthopedics. Gahan ignored Douyu, his face expressionless as if she was farting. All right, can't you see it? Gahan doesn't care about us at all, and he doesn't really treat us as his sword ladies. It's as if that dead, fish-like expression of his can fool us. Etian said in a strange tone. Among all the sword ladies present, Etian was probably the most experienced and mature one. Hence, she could see through Gahan's actual situation with just a glance. Master, did an enemy hurt Qingpin? Juzi always listens to your orders. Who do you want to kill? Juzi will help you kill them. Juzi was as loyal as ever. At this moment, the only one who didn't speak was Shui. Although she was also sitting in the hall, she maintained her silence. She seemed a little out of place compared to the other sword ladies. This was to be expected. After all, Shui was not a real sword lady to a certain extent. Her relationship with Gahan was not at the level where they could really talk to each other. Moreover, ever since she became Gahan's sword lady, she also refused to communicate more openly with Gahan to a certain extent. Hence, it was natural for her to keep a distance from Gahan. More importantly, she was just using Gahan's identity as a sword lady to get rid of her identity as Yuan Ko. Logically speaking, she should not have any interest in becoming Gahan's sword lady. Everyone, don't think too much. I will tell you the truth when the time is right. I think there shouldn't be too many battles in the next few days. Moreover, it's rare that no other sword bearers will appear here. Your numbers will not be exposed. Everyone can move around freely, Gahan said after taking a deep breath. Because he had to hide the fact that he had 6 sword ladies, only 3 sword ladies, Qingpin, Etian, and Juzi, could come out and move around normally. Qijian looked exactly like Juzi, so he could sometimes fool others into showing up without anyone noticing. Douyu could also use her identity as Gahan's little sister in Yuzhong City. However, after arriving in Yinjing City, Gahan did not dare to let Douyu show up normally. She could only hide in her room or simply stay in her scabbard. This made the lively Douyu unable to bear it. Originally, Shanghai Pass did not have this much freedom. This was because there would be 48 ancient sword bearers around Gahan. There was a high chance that Douyu and Shui would be exposed. Fortunately, those ancient sword-bearers had not been assigned to this place. Kurakin was the only living person around. Without his superior's permission, Kurakin did not even have the right to leave this area. The only thing he did not have to worry about was being disturbed. Whatever. Anyway, I only need alcohol to drink. Etion stretched and extended a hand to Gahan. Do you have any more alcohol? I've already finished it. Guhan glanced at his dimensional pocket. There wasn't much alcohol left inside. It had all been emptied by Etion, that Hadaleo. Drink it sparingly. I wonder if there's any alcohol for sale here. Guhan passed the remaining alcohol to Etion. If there's alcohol today, get drunk today. If there's trouble tomorrow, worry tomorrow. When I'm done drinking, I'll just ask you for more. Who asked you to be my sword bearer? Etion laughed and left the House of Guardians with a bottle of alcohol. Auntie Etion, wait for me. I'll go with you. Seeing that Etion had left, Doyu immediately jumped out of Gahan's arms and pounced on Etion. Unfortunately, it seemed to be too weak. Just as it hooked onto Etion's clothes, it lost its balance and fell off. Fortunately, Etion, who was drinking, was not muddle-headed. He grabbed Doyu's calf and lifted Doyu like a doll. As there was no anti-gravity skirt in this world, Doyu's skirt naturally flipped down. The edge of the skirt covered Doyu's face. Her underwear with a big green flower fish embroidered on it was naturally revealed, emitting a youthful glow. This new house is a mess. I still need to clean it up. I won't go out with you guys. Chijin had already assumed the role of a good wife and mother. She began to manage the housekeeping of the entire House of Guardians. Shui quietly returned to her room. Juzi stood behind Gahan like a loyal guard. Juzi, don't you want to go out and have some fun? Gahan asked Juzi. I don't want to. Juzi shook her head. There's nothing fun in this world. Master is the most important. All right, then follow me out for a walk. After all, this *T* garrison area is my territory. Guhan laughed. Chapter 884. It was said that the *T* garrison district used to be a well-known heavy industrial base in Huaxia, with many well-known heavy machinery factories in Huaxia. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, these heavy machinery factories had long since disappeared. Only the rusted heavy machine tools that were exposed from time to time by the roadside told of the former glory of this place. Guhan took Juzi to walk around the entire *T* garrison district. He mainly wanted to see the terrain of his garrison area, so that when the Wu people attacked, he would not even know where to set up his defense. After walking around, Gahan was very sad to find that the entire *T* garrison district was a flat plain area. Except for a small hill in the northwest, there was no terrain that could be called a mountain, so the Wu people could attack his garrison area from any place. Fine. Anyway, I'm the only one in the entire garrison area so far. Even if there's a good terrain, I can only defend my own garrison office. Gahan smiled indifferently. Suddenly, he found that Juzi, who had been following behind him, had disappeared. Following the connection between himself and Juzi, Gahan quickly found the missing Juzi and found that she was squatting in front of him, attentively stroking a large machine tool in front of him. This is an industrial machine tool. Gahan found that the nameplate of this machine tool was still intact because the words on it were printed with a steel seal, so even after 1,000 years, it had not disappeared. It stubbornly penetrated its own information to the humans 1,000 years later. And this machine tool was actually an industrial machine tool of national importance. Figuratively speaking, the so-called industrial machine tool was a machine specially used to produce machine tools. For a machine tool, the most important thing was its accuracy. If the accuracy of the machine tool itself could not be controlled, then the accuracy of the products produced by the machine tool would inevitably be uncontrollable. Therefore, in the process of producing a high-precision machine tool, a qualified industrial machine tool was particularly important. In fact, in the current Yinjing city, there was such a super industrial machine tool. 90% of the high-end high-precision machine tool platforms in Yinjing City were manufactured by this industrial machine, and these high-precision machine tools produced various other machine tools with different functions, finally forming the entire industrial chain of Yinjing City. It was precisely because of a complete industrial chain that Yinjing City could manufacture all kinds of black technology products that humanity needed. Of course, for the current Gahan, the industrial chain was not important. But at some point in the future, Gahan would realize how much he needed this thing. Of course, this was all in the future. Do you like it? Standing behind Juzi, Gahan stroked the industrial machine and asked, "I like it." Juzi's answer was very straightforward. "Master, do you feel it? It is like a mother who has worked hard to give birth to many children, but now it can only lie here helplessly. So, I want to save its life." "Save it?" Gohan was stunned. "How are you going to save it?" "Master, can I bring it back to the Guardian's mansion?" Juzi turned her head and looked at Gohan. "I think I can fix it and restore it to its former glory." "Fix it?" Gohan shook his head in his heart. It seemed that Juzi's interest was aroused. She was originally the sword of the world's greatest scientist, MOD, and had a natural interest in technological inventions and manufacturing. Back when she was at the Liu siblings' house, she once fixed the game helmet that even Liu Yin couldn't fix, which showed Juzi's talent in this area. Perhaps it was seeing this industrial machine tool that aroused Juzi's interest, so she proposed to fix it. But so what if this industrial machine tool was fixed? This was just an industrial machine tool from 1,000 years ago. Now, it probably couldn't even compare to an ordinary machine tool. It was no longer worthy of the title of industrial machine tool. Even if it was fixed, it would probably be useless waste. But so what? If this was Juzi's interest, then there was no need to measure it with benefits. It was fine as long as Juzi was happy. Therefore, Gohan nodded happily and kept the industrial machine tool in his dimensional pocket. He planned to hand it over to Juzi when he returned to the Guardian's mansion. As for how Juzi tormented it, Gohan couldn't be bothered. Then, Gohan and Juzi fell silent again. Gohan was silent because he was worried about Qingpin's situation, while Juzi was silent because Gohan maintained his silence. "Juzi, let me ask you." Suddenly, Gohan broke the silence. "If someone put a knife to your neck and forced you to do something, what would you do?" Hearing Gohan's question, Juzi seriously thought for a while and answered, "Juzi is a sword mistress. That knife can't hurt Juzi." Gohan rolled his eyes. "What if this knife can hurt you? For example, this knife was specially made to restrain you." Juzi listens to Master's orders. Juzi's tone remained unchanged. Whatever Master tells Juzi to do, Juzi will do. Tangerine only listens to her Master's orders, not a knife's. "You usually look stupid. How did you become so smart at this time?" Gohan smiled bitterly and touched Juzi's head. "If you can listen to Master's orders, then whose orders should I listen to? I don't have my own master." "Master really doesn't have your own master?" Juzi looked at Gohan very seriously. "If Master doesn't have your own master, then why does Master keep fighting? If Juzi doesn't have a master, then Juzi will lie quietly in the scabbard. Anything that happens outside will have nothing to do with Juzi. You are being irresponsible, just like a salted fish without a dream." Gohan knocked Juzi's head. "So, Master, you are fighting for your own dream." Juzi's words suddenly became full of philosophy. "Then Master only needs to listen to the orders of his dream." "My dream." Gohan fell into deep thought. Once upon a time, Gohan's dream was very firm. It was to kill all the Yuan Ko, avenge his parents, and give all humans a peaceful world. Other than that, Gohan had no other dreams in his world. For this dream, Gohan was willing to sacrifice everything that could be sacrificed. But now, he seemed to be different. There were too many people around Gohan who would rather sacrifice himself than her, such as Qingpin, Qidian, Douyu, and the little Juzi beside him. "Master, have you found the answer to the question?" Seeing that Gohan stopped walking for a long time, Juzi asked confusedly. "Not yet." Gohan shook his head. "But I have a rough idea of where to ask for directions." Time passed day by day. Gahan stayed in Sing garrison for about 5 days. The surroundings were still quiet, and no Wu people came to disturb Gahan's beautiful life. However, even though the Wu people did not come to disturb Gahan, it did not mean that others would not come to disturb Gahan. For example, Gu Xuanwu, Gahan's daughter, suddenly appeared in the Sing garrison's area of defense. And the moment she appeared, the *T* star Zhou Tian star's Chun banner immediately alerted Gahan, telling Gahan that a non-human life form had appeared in his *T* star's area of defense. "You should come with me." This was the first sentence Gu Xuanwu said after seeing Gahan. It was also the main reason why Gu Xuanwu had always been by Gahan's side. In essence, she was just a pitiful girl who wanted to bring her heartless father to see her mother, who had endured all kinds of hardships. "I'm afraid this is a bit difficult." Hearing Gu Xuanwu's request, Gahan honestly replied, "You have also seen that there are only 3 sword bearers in the entire Water Ape garrison. If any one of them leaves, it will lead to the collapse of the entire garrison. I think before the new batch of reinforcements arrives, I will not be able to meet your mother with you for the time being." "No." Gu Xuanwu shook her head without thinking. "Actually, I secretly went back for a trip in the past 5 days. I found out that my mother was already at the end of her life. If we delay it for a few more days, I'm really afraid." Speaking up to here, Gu Xuanwu's eyes suddenly turned red. Actually, Gahan had already noticed that from the moment she entered the door, Gu Xuanwu's eyes were already red and swollen. But now they had become even more swollen. This meant that in the past 2 days, Gu Xuanwu had shed a lot of tears. It seemed like her mother was really not going to make it. "No, this time I'm afraid that I will be gone for at least 1 or 2 days. I cannot selfishly put the entire garrison in danger just because of me." Although his heart ached for Gu Xuanwu, Gahan did not hesitate to reject Gu Xuanwu's request. "Then I will kill you." Gu Xuanwu gritted his teeth. The devil bullet gun suddenly appeared in Gu Xuanwu's hands. Almost in an instant, the gun's muzzle was pressed against Gahan's head. "Are you going or not?" Gu Xuanwu screamed at the top of his lungs. "Stop! What are you trying to do?" The Juzi sword and Qi Dian sword beside Gahan instantly drew their swords and aimed at Gu Xuanwu, who was pressing against Gahan's head. The tense situation seemed to have reached the point where it could explode at any moment. "Not going." How could Gahan be threatened by a gun? The only words that came out of his mouth were, "I don't want to go." "Aight." Gu Xuanwu's fingers tightly grasped the trigger. It was as if in the next moment, a dragon tooth bullet would shoot out from the muzzle and take away Gahan's life. But after a long stalemate, Gu Xuanwu still did not pull the trigger. She could only use the most helpless and pleading eyes in the world to look at Gahan. "I beg you, Dad, I beg you to go see my mother. She's really going to die." "Woo-woo." When Gu Xuanwu said this, the devil bullet gun in her hands fell to the ground. She could only kneel on the ground and cry like a helpless child. It must be admitted that at this moment, Gahan's heart softened. Just when Gahan was about to open his mouth to say something, the great Zhou Tian star Chin banner in his Zifu suddenly issued a hurried warning sound, warning Gahan that some object had entered the Shit Star garrison at an extremely fast speed and was approaching Gahan's position. "Hide in my dimensional pocket first." Gahan did not say anything and directly put Gu Xuanwu into his dimensional pocket. Because Gu Xuanwu was currently in Yuan Ko's form, there was no problem in living in the dimensional pocket. Then Gahan also put the 3 sword ladies back into their scabbards. He used the fastest speed to prepare for the arrival of this uninvited guest. Chapter 885. Comrade Gahan, you've taken good care of this place. As soon as the person entered the door, he spoke to Gahan in a very friendly manner. "So it's Sir Yao Wang. I wonder what brings Sir Yao Wang to my Sing garrison. Are you here to inspect the work?" Gahan chuckled. Not only was there no respect in his tone, but there was also a hint of sarcasm in it. Originally, everyone was a famed sword-level swordsman, but because of the reason of first come, first served. That was why he, Yao Wang, could stand at the top of Shanhai Pass, while Gahan stayed in this garrison area that even his name, could not compare to. Of course, Gohan was absolutely not dissatisfied with this garrison area. Absolutely not. It's not really an inspection. Anyway, with you, Gohan, guarding this place, I believe that no Wu people can pass through here. Yao Guang smiled slightly. That Lilith thinks that she has the most powerful swordsman, but she doesn't know that the real all-rounder is here with me. Did you come to me just to say this nonsense? Gohan knocked on the table. All right, Yao Guang, stop acting. I know you've seen through it. Some things can't be hidden from smart people. And I don't need to play riddles. All right, I want to act a little longer. Yao Guang revealed a disappointed expression. Then, I'll officially welcome Comrade Military Governor to join our Sanshuian Sing garrison. I hope Comrade Military Governor won't take my little joke too seriously. Can I say that I take it very seriously? Gohan asked. Of course you can. Yao Guang nodded and then smiled. But if I can make Comrade Military Governor feel sorry for me, I'll feel very honored. You know that I'm not a person who likes to talk nonsense. You don't look like you're here to catch up with me. Your intuition is still so sharp. In fact, I do have something to talk to you about. Yao Guang nodded. Then his smiling face suddenly turned serious. He projected a few photos from his personal terminal and placed them in front of Gohan. Gohan immediately narrowed his eyes. According to this photo, in a dense forest, there was a very conspicuous white object hanging on a tree. This is a picture taken by a patrolling unmanned star shuttle. As Yao Guang spoke, the photo suddenly zoomed in with a white object as the center. When it was zoomed in, the white object finally revealed its true appearance. It turned out to be a white robe. This is Ashima's robe. Gohan had a deep impression of this robe because Ashima had been wearing this white robe in front of Gohan for the past few days. How could Gohan not recognize the owner of this robe? Good eyesight. Yao Guang gave Gohan a thumbs up and praised. This is a clue we got 3 hours ago. I spent a full half an hour comparing it to confirm that this robe is Ashima's Sanus's robe. I didn't expect Mr. Military Governor to recognize it at a glance. If I knew this earlier, I wouldn't have wasted this half an hour. Where was this photo taken? Did you search the surroundings carefully? Gohan asked immediately. This photo was taken in the depths of Changbai Mountain. That's Wu people's territory. Our people don't dare to enter that area at all, so we can only search with unmanned star shuttles. Unfortunately, 6 unmanned star shuttles searched for a full 2 hours and didn't find a second clue, Yao Guang said regretfully. That's not strange. Changbai Mountain is full of lush forests and snow. It's not easy to find this white robe. It's almost impossible to find more clues with the star shuttles in the air. Gohan continued. However, I'm very curious as to why they would appear in Changbai Mountain. If their star shuttles were controlled by Wu people, then Wu people would definitely kill them as soon as possible instead of taking them to a place as far away as Changbai Mountain. What do you think? Yao Guang's eyes lit up. In my opinion, Ashima and the rest weren't forced to Changbai Mountain by the Wu people. They must have seen through the Shibai Corpse tribe's disguise in the star shuttle, just like us. They might have engaged in a battle with the wizard tribe, and in the end, they completely destroyed the control system of the star shuttle. They could only let the star shuttle fly on its own, and in the end, they landed in Changbai Mountain. Gohan quickly analyzed. That makes sense, but it's only your side of the story. Do you have any proof? Yao Guang's eyes lit up even more. I don't have the proof you're looking for, but I have a simple analysis with common sense. After Gohan finished speaking, he used his personal terminal to project a map of the entire Shanhai Pass. He then pointed at the position of the Shanhai Pass Tower and said, "This is where we're heading out from." He then pointed at the Guardian's mansion on planet Suzaku and said, "This is where Ashima and the rest were supposed to arrive at. Connect these 2 points with a straight line, and then make an extension to the end." As soon as Gohan finished speaking, his finger stopped at a certain point in the area marked with Changbai Mountain on the map. There's a limit to the star shuttle's energy. When all the energy is used up, I believe their star shuttle will land near this point. You can make a comparison. I believe the image taken by the unmanned star shuttle should be around this point, Gohan concluded. Brilliant, brilliant. Yao Guang clapped her hands, and at the same time, she projected her own map. The two maps overlapped, and at the place where Gu Han's finger had stopped, the picture of Yao Guang's accident was clearly visible. It seemed that Gohan's guess was right. The photo was indeed found at the location Gahan pointed out. We got in touch with the city of Jerusalem yesterday. The Archbishop of Jerusalem Bay City told me very clearly that the headlamp representing the life of the Holy Maiden in the Vatican has not been extinguished, so they think that their Holy Maiden is 100% still alive. They want me to do my best to bring back their saintess and holy sword. Otherwise, Linyang City will forever refuse to send any sword-bearers into the Shanhai Pass. They won't care even if the heavenly cycle star formation is destroyed. There was a hint of anger in Yao Guang's words. He was obviously angry at Jerusalem's threatening attitude. However, Yao Guang could not ignore the threat of Jerusalem. After all, Jerusalem was responsible for 1/10 of the support of Shanhai Pass. If this 1/10 of the support was lost, it would have to be filled by other cities. At that time, it would be strange if the other 7 Bay cities did not jump up and bury a huge crack in the entire human race. Therefore, despite being angry at Jerusalem's request, the Shanhai Pass Management Committee finally decided to find Ashima and the others by all means. Even though he knew that it was impossible to find them, and he knew that the 2 guardian mansions, Taiyang and Taiyin, lacked the power to suppress them, Yao Guang still had to send a team to Changbai Mountain to search for traces of Ashima and the others. I discussed it with Lilith for a long time and felt that it was impossible to find Ashima and the others by relying on the Star Shuttle. We must send a rescue force on the ground. At this point, Yao Guang became particularly solemn. But that is the territory of the Wu people. The frequent movements of our Star Shuttle have aroused the vigilance of the Wu people. The 6-star shuttles I mentioned before have been shot down by the Wu people because they were taking pictures at a low altitude. After that, when we tried to send a second wave, we found that the sky was filled with the Wu people of the Dijiang and Xinming tribes. It would be extremely risky to send the sword bearers directly from the air. Instead, we can deceive people by setting off on the ground. Gohan snorted coldly. I'll say the rest for you, because we have to set off on the ground to enter Changbai Mountain, and to enter Changbai Mountain, we need to pass through the large-scale settlements of 5 Wu people tribes. Even a 3-year-old child knows how much risk it will take. Therefore, you must choose the strongest and most resourceful sword-bearers to go in case the others go in and can't come back. Speaking of the strongest and most resourceful sword-bearers, you immediately thought of me. So, you hope that I can pass through the large-scale settlements of the Wu people and help you find them in Changbai Mountain, right? Gohan spoke without pausing. Obviously, he already knew Yao Guang's plan. Since you already know, I won't explain any further. If it's possible, I hope that you can set off now. Before the Wu people realize what's going on, quickly enter Changbai Mountain and rescue Ashima and the rest, Yao Guang said straightforwardly. Just me? Gohan narrowed his eyes and asked. Just you. Yao Guang's eyes widened. Are you guys crazy? Instead of using the mighty and invincible Miss Liu Ling, you came to me, the guardian of the SH*T planet. I think you should find someone else. Gohan said and made a gesture, gesturing for Yao Guang to leave his residence. We can't use Miss Ling. Yao Guang refused to leave. He counted with his fingers and said, Miss Ling has more than enough strength, but how should I put it? She's still lacking in quick-wittedness. Therefore, she's not the best candidate. Why don't you just say that she's stupid? Gohan sneered. But it doesn't matter if she's stupid. In the face of absolute power, everything is a joke. As long as she has the billion sword technique, there's nothing that Liu Ling can't do. I don't accept this reason. You'd better give me another one. Fine. Yao Guang shrugged. The second reason is very simple. Since yesterday, outside the Suzuko planet's guardian zone, the Wu people's grand shaman, Xing Tian, Yu Shi, and the other 2 grand shamans have been loitering outside. The great shaman of the sorcerer tribe, Xing Tian, Yu Shi, and the other great shamans are loitering outside. I don't know why they didn't attack directly, but there's no doubt that the Sun Star's garrison area might face another attack from the sorcerer tribe at any moment. That barely counts as a reason. Gahan nodded, then shook his head. But that's not enough. You still haven't given me a decisive reason. Chapter 886. Yao Guang suddenly changed the topic and said to Juzi, who was standing behind Gahan, "This must be military governor's famous sword, Juzi's sword. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with Juzi?" Gahan asked. No, I'm just curious. Lady Juzi should be the first sword maiden to appear in the world. Moreover, I remember that Brother Commander's ancient sword greatsword maiden, poor Lady Qing, was also the first Archean sword maiden to appear, Yao Guang said with a smile. Although Gahan didn't want anyone to know about Juzi's sword or Qidian's sword, Gahan should at least have a famous sword. Therefore, Gahan could only report the situation of Juzi's sword to the Sword Council. Therefore, a natural famous sword appeared on the Sword Council's list of sword ladies. Of course, because the new issue of the famous sword record would only be published in 4 months, unless one specifically went to the Sword Council's official database to check. Most people would not know that the Juzi sword was a new primordial sword maiden. From this, it could be seen that Yao Guang was very concerned about Guang Han. What's the point? Guhan squinted his eyes, not knowing what Yao Guang was up to. Brother Military Governor, you don't know. Although my family isn't famous, we have a hobby, and that is to collect all kinds of precious documents and ancient books. There are even many documents and ancient books that even the highest level of intelligence can't collect. At this point, Yao Guang paused. After realizing that Gahan didn't have any special reaction, he continued, "A few decades ago, my father took a risk and went to the ruins of Shanghai. In a small bookstore in the ruins, he found a very interesting novel. Unfortunately, most of the novel was damaged, and there were barely a dozen pages that could be distinguished. This made my father very sad, and he could only treasure it in the family's library. What do you want to tell me?" He had to admit that Yao Guang's ability to whet people's appetites was pretty good. Guhan's appetite had been whetted by Yao Guang. It's like this. When I was young, I liked to play in a library, so I was lucky enough to see those 10 pages. I only felt that the story was a little boring, so I didn't take it to heart. But when I met you, Brother Military Governor, and heard that your ancient sword greatsword mistress is the Qingpin sword, I suddenly felt that it sounded a little familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen it before. That's why I kept thinking about it whenever I had free time. Finally, I remembered that I saw the sword's name on that torn page. At this point, Yao Guang waved his hand, and the image of a broken page was projected on his personal terminal. However, the other parts of the page were heavily mosaic, and only a paragraph of text could be seen on one of the paragraphs. It was a very short paragraph that looked like a poem: 8 trigrams immortal robe, flying purple chi, 3-pointed treasured sword, Qingping. Qingping sword? Qingpin sword? Seeing this name, Guhan's mind suddenly felt as if it had been hit by a heavy blow. After some time, Gahan finally cleared his mind. What do you think this means? Guhan acted as if nothing had happened. It's just a sword that has the same name as my Qingpin sword. Is that so? Then I might have misunderstood. I just thought that since the 2 names have the same pronunciation, could it be the same sword? Yao Guang kept the page, and Guhan suddenly felt a sense of loss. Actually, as far as I know, many sword ladies' names were made up by later generations. Just like the Dragon Spring Empress, it was called the Dragon Spring Sword in all the ancient records after the Tang Dynasty. However, it was only when the Dragon Spring Lady herself said that we found out that her original name was the Dragon Spring Sword. Later on, this sword fell into the hands of the Tang Dynasty's founding emperor, Li Yuan. Li Yuan was very fond of the Dragon Spring Sword, but the Dragon Spring Sword had a flaw. Its name had the word Yuan in it, which was a taboo with Li Yuan's Yuan. Thus, in order to avoid this opportunity, Li Yuan changed the Dragon Spring Sword into the Dragon Spring Sword. In the end, the Dragon Spring Sword replaced the original name of the Dragon Abyss Sword and became the true name of the Dragon Spring Goddess. Yao Guang was indeed very knowledgeable, a story that ordinary people would definitely not know easily, came out his mouth. This story was passed down during the early period of the Great Apocalypse. At that time, there was no cultural extinction yet, so the person who recorded this story had written down the cause and effect of the matter very clearly. In other words, the Dragon Spring Sword had always been called the Dragon Spring Sword. It was only after the Great Apocalypse that the Dragon Spring Lady became a sword lady that the wielder of the sword found out from the Dragon Spring Lady that the original name of the Dragon Spring Sword was Dragon Yuan. It was only after the Tang Dynasty that it was changed to Dragon Spring. However, compared to the name Dragon Yuan, the Dragon Spring Lady preferred the current name of Dragon Spring. Thus, the Sword Committee completely changed the name of the Dragon Spring Sword to the Dragon Spring Sword. Now, only those who had read this story would know that the original name of the Dragon Spring Sword was the Dragon Spring Sword. P.S. This story is half true and half false. The Dragon Spring Sword was indeed changed to the Dragon Spring Sword. However, whether or not it was Li Yuan who changed the name is still debated. In addition, the real Dragon Spring Sword or the Dragon Spring Sword did not appear. Legend has it that it was buried in Li Yuan's Tang Xian tomb. The tombs of the emperors of the Tang Dynasty, especially those of the emperors of the early Tang Dynasty, were relatively lucky. The country has never excavated the Tang Xian tomb, so no one knows if the Dragon Spring Sword is there or not. They were clearly talking about the Qingpin Sword, but Yao Guang talked a lot about the Dragon Spring Sword. It was a little strange, but Gahan understood Yao Guang's meaning. Yao Guang's meaning was very simple. If the Dragon Spring Sword could be changed to the Dragon Spring Sword by an emperor, then why couldn't the Qingpin Sword be changed to the Qingpin Sword? Moreover, this sword was originally an ancient sword of the Lunyan clan. The name Qingpin Sword was also passed down by the Lunyan clan. Gahan had only determined the name of the Qingpin Sword through the status panel in the game Sword Lady Online. In other words, the name Qingpin Sword was decided by the Lunyan clan. If the Lunyan clan wanted to change the name of the Qingpin Sword, everyone would be kept in the dark. No one would know the truth. Most importantly, the Qingpin Sword was too strange. She did not look like an ancient sword or a sword lady. From the form and power of the young girl Qingpin, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the Qingpin Sword was a spirit sword or even a celestial sword lady. Moreover, the poor girl had requested Gu Han to use all of the Sorcerer Tribe's blood essence and the 12 ancestors of Sorcerer's blood essence to recover her own power. Putting aside the fact that the entire Sorcerer Tribe's power was equivalent to 1 or 2 Emperor sword-level sword-bearers, the 12 ancestors of Sorcerer alone were equivalent to 12 Emperor sword-level sword-bearers. The young girl Qingpin Sword actually needed such a powerful blood essence to recover her power. The young girl Qingpin Swords was probably at least an Emperor Sword Lady. So, was the Qingpin Sword really the Qingpin Sword? If the Qingpin Sword was the Qingpin Sword, then where did the real Qingpin Sword come from? Why had she shrunk her body into the shape of a cute young girl and split her consciousness into two? Most importantly, if the Qingpin Sword relied on sucking the Wu people's blood to recover its power, what would happen to the cute Qingpin Sword? All of Gahan's questions could only be answered on those damned mosaic pages. Of course, there were only a dozen or so pages, so it was possible that this page did not contain the answers that Gahan was looking for. But who could guarantee that these pages did not contain the answers? As such, in that instant, Yao Guang had a hold on Gahan's weak spot. Yao Guang had no way of retaliating, and he couldn't even find a way to resist. Even if Gahan wanted to forcefully seize it, he wouldn't be able to do so. After all, it was just a bunch of data. A light-shaking realm cultivator could destroy all of it with a single thought. You win. Give me all of the pages, and I'll go to Changbai Mountain and save Ashima and the others. In the end, Gahan still lost to Yao Guang, or rather, he lost his love for Qingpin. Thank you. Yao Guang laughed. But I was just joking. Even if Brother Military Governor doesn't want to go to Changbai Mountain, I can't really threaten you with these pages. Even if Brother Military Governor decides not to go, I will still give these pages to Brother Military Governor. After all, our comradeship is more important than anything else. As Yao Guang spoke, he lightly tapped Gahan's gadget. Guhan's gadget notified that Guhan had received a new document. Guhan glanced at it and found that it was indeed a picture of a dozen or so pages that hadn't been censored. This Yawang really knows himself too well. Why do I feel like he's even more astute than I am? Guhan pursed his lips. If he really wanted to give them to him, why would he bother censoring them? Obviously, this light-shaking realm cultivator knew that Su-chan was a man of his word, so he purposefully did him a favor. He was simply handing over the reward that Guhan was supposed to receive to Su-chan in advance. However, Guhan believed that even if he hadn't agreed to Yawang's deal, Yawang would still have given these pages to Guhan in the end. This was because only Guhan desperately needed these pages, but they were of no use to anyone else. If Guhan hadn't agreed to Yawang's deal in the end, then Yawang wouldn't have received any benefits from these pages. Instead, he would have developed a grudge against Guhan because of the failure of this deal, ruining the hard-earned relationship between Yawang and Guhan. On the other hand, if Yawang still gave the pages to Guhan in the end, then even if Guhan didn't go to Changbai Mountain, Guhan would still owe Yawang a huge favor. Sooner or later, Yawang would return this favor. Therefore, no matter what the result of Yawang's move was, he would still have profited. Only Guhan would have lost a lot of money. Chapter 887. Yawang left a token for Guhan before he left the Shi Sing garrison. It was a mission token unique to Shanghai Pass. The electronic card in the token recorded all the information related to the mission in detail, as well as the rewards that could be obtained after the mission was completed. Some people might think that the mission token was unnecessary. All one had to do was record the detailed information when accepting the mission. Why would there be an unnecessary mission token? The reason was simple. Many of the missions issued in Shanghai Pass were more complicated, and many of them could not be used to prove that the sword-bearer had completed the mission. For example, the simplest patrol mission required the sword-bearer to patrol a specific area. However, if the sword-bearer found a place to sleep for a night and came back the next day, saying that they had completed the patrol, nobody could prove that the sword-bearer had completed the mission. Outside of Shanghai Pass, one could rely on the records of the personal terminal to determine whether the mission had been completed or not. However, in Shanghai Pass, as long as one left the amplification tower of the Guardian's residence, the functions of the personal terminal with dimensional alloy would be greatly suppressed by the power of the stars. Many functions could not be realized, and it could not record the sword-bearer's completion of the mission. Hence, the mission token was born. The mission token was made of a new type of material. Although it could not communicate with the outside world, its main function was not suppressed by the power of the stars. It could record a lot of necessary information in detail, which could be used to determine whether the mission had been completed or not. For example, the mission token that Yawang had left behind was in Guhan's hand. Guhan took a closer look at the information in the token. The mission information was the same as what Yawang had said. Guhan was required to head to Changbai Mountain to find clues about the missing Ashima and the others. The time limit was 5 days. As long as he stayed in Changbai Mountain for 5 days, the mission would be considered completed even if he did not find Ashima. Guhan could then return to the Guardian's residence. If Guhan could successfully bring Ashima and the others back, or bring Ashima's corpse back, there would naturally be no need for a mission token to confirm whether Guhan had completed the mission. However, if Guhan had not found Ashima and the others, and had only wandered around Changbai Mountain for 5 days, the record on the mission token would be extremely important. This was the only evidence that could confirm that Guhan had indeed been searching in Changbai Mountain for 5 days. However, the only thing that excited the wielder was the mission reward. Compared to the meager daily salary, the mission rewards issued by the Guardian Mansion were extremely generous. Even the simplest patrol mission was equivalent to a month's daily salary, let alone some of the more dangerous missions. The mission that Guhan received required him to pass through 5 areas controlled by the Wu people's tribes, so the risk factor was terrifying. Ordinary wielder who accepted this mission would most likely die, so naturally, The reward for this mission was very generous. First of all, there was a reward of 10 million yuan. However, for Gahan, who already had hundreds of billions of yuan, the reward was still not that big of a deal. What really tempted Gahan was the hero coin reward. There were a total of 1 million hero coins, which was enough for Gahan to deepen the Qidian sword and the Juzi sword to the 3rd grade. He would then be able to activate all skills apart from ultimate skills. There were many other values in the hero coin, and it was not necessary to exchange all of them for the marks needed to deepen the sword mark. Gahan could also purchase many rare resources from the wielder's shop, such as buying 100 cute dolls at the price of 10,000 hero coins and enjoying the pleasure of being the king of a harem. Other than renminbi and hero coins, the most precious thing was merit points. Merit points could not be exchanged for anything, but they were the greatest proof that the Guardians could use to increase their level. In most cases, after the Guardian's direct superior died in battle or left the Shanhai Pass after 3 years, the position that could allow the Guardian to be promoted would naturally be empty. As for the Guardians under the superior's command, it would depend on the number of merit points they had. The higher the number, the higher their path would be. For example, after Liu Ling killed 3 great wizards in one fell swoop, she directly received 3 million merit points. This number was only slightly less than Lilith's merit points. After Lilith died in battle or left the Shanhai Pass, the next Guardian of the Sun would definitely be Liu Ling. It was a pity that Gahan had clearly fought against the 2 great wizards, Xingtian and Yushi. Unfortunately, the only witness, Xiao Mian, was inexperienced and biased against Gahan, so he did not recognize Xingtian at all. Otherwise, Gahan's current merit points would be around 1 million, which was more than enough to be a guardian of the main planet. This mission gave Guhan 500,000 merit points. If Guhan could complete this mission, he would be able to leave the *T-Star Guardian Mansion in the near future. It was a place that made people's balls ache just by hearing its name. Pack up. Get ready to leave. According to Yao Wang's request, Gahan had to leave within half an hour after receiving the mission. Therefore, everything seemed a little rushed. Gahan even went to the Sanchuan garrison at the last minute and bought a lot of dry food from the vending machine there. Unfortunately, there was only dry food. There was no meat, which Qingpin loved, and there was no wine, which Etian wanted. When Gahan returned from the Sanchuan garrison, he found a valiant-looking sword-bearer standing next to his residence. Leslie Dracula, what are you doing here? Gahan realized that this sword-bearer was actually Leslie Dracula, who had been assigned to the Baihu Imperial Planet Tongue Planet Garrison, Lord Guardian of the *T planet with a unique smell. I was transferred here by Master Yao Wang himself. Leslie Dracula waved the transfer order in her hand. Clearly, the words Guardian of the *T planet made her very happy. Master Yao Wang said that you are loyal and courageous, and that you are going to save Ashima and the others alone. But this way, the Sanchuan garrison will only have 2 sword-bearers left. It is too dangerous, so he transferred me to the Starscreen garrison next to yours. From now on, we will be neighbors. Hello, neighbor. Goodbye, neighbor. Gahan turned a blind eye to Leslie Dracula. He kept his guardian mansion back in his space ball and released his water droplet hovering flying car. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in front of Leslie Dracula. This unromantic *T. Leslie Dracula was so angry that she kicked Gahan's *T planet throne. The throne was unexpectedly sturdy, and Leslie Dracula's little foot hurt. Where are we going? After being released from Guhan's dimensional pocket, Gu Xuanwu asked in a baffled manner. She realized that Gahan, who had insisted that he could not leave the garrison residence, was now sitting on her droplet hovercraft and heading towards the depths of Shanhai Pass. Don't mess with me. I need to go out and do something. Don't worry, once this is done, I will immediately go to your house on the way. After Guhan said this, he no longer paid attention to Gu Xuanwu. He focused all his attention on the dozen or so photos in his hands. Gahan repeatedly looked through the photos inside and out and could only sigh helplessly. Not only did these photos not solve Gahan's doubts, but they also made Gahan even more confused. Although there were more than a dozen broken pages, the words in these pages were not completely clear. At least one half of the words had disappeared, and the remaining words were also missing one by one. Guhan had to rely on his imagination to barely understand what was being said. After repeatedly thinking about it, Guhan finally understood the contents of these pages. First of all, this page seemed to be a novel, and it was a vernacular novel from the Middle Ages. This was because the writing naturally exuded a flavor that only novels would have. Normal history books or mythological books would not have such a flavor. Secondly, this novel described the earliest period of the Middle Ages. The story happened in the Shang and Zhou dynasties. As for who the main character of the story was, Guhan was not clear. He only vaguely saw the complete names of Jiang Zia, Yang Jian, King Zhou, and a few others. The names of the other characters had long been missing, at most with only one word left. Guhan could not guess who the characters were at all. These dozens of pages were not continuous. According to some of the incomplete page numbers, these dozens of pages had at least 3 different contents. The first part said that Jiang Zia was fishing in a certain place, and then he was discovered by a big shot who respectfully invited him back to be a military advisor. The second part said that a man named Yang Jian found a secret book called 8-9 Mysteries in a cave, and then he was accepted as a disciple by someone. The last part was the words that appeared in Qing Ping. It was a long poem of 7 words, and the full text was as follows: opening up the earth and opening up the sky, discussing the scriptures and laws, touring the capital, passing on the 5 qis to the origin, gathering the 3 flowers over the head to perform wusheng. The golden light on the top splits into 5 colors, and the red lotus under the feet chases 10,000 miles. The 8 trigrams immortal robe flies purple qi, and the treasured sword with 3 points is called Qing Ping. Subduing tigers and subduing dragons is the first. Capturing demons and restraining monsters is unhindered. There are about 3,000 disciples, and the following are all elites. Heavenly flowers fall with infinite wonders, and the earth embraces the golden lotus. Purifying all to produce positive results, and cultivating the right path belongs to silence. Through this poem, one could guess that the Qing Ping sword should be the sword of a supermaster, and this supermaster should be a master of Taoism, who seemed to have very strong magic power and also had 3,000 disciples. In short, this poem was used to boast about how powerful this supermaster was. Unfortunately, this poem was not complete. There should be another part of the poem, but the ink marks of these lines had long dissipated in the passage of time, so it was impossible to know what was said after the poem. What was even more tragic was that the text before and after this poem was almost gone. Only the full text of the poem had a sentence, regardless of category, accepting all of them indiscriminately. How can one become an immortal when it comes to the depth of one's root? It was still vaguely visible. However, Guhan could not guess what this sentence meant. Who was it referring to accepting disciples indiscriminately? Was it the owner of the Qing Ping sword who was criticizing others? Or was it someone else who was criticizing the owner of the Qing Ping sword? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.